Chapter 1229. A divine object descending into the fifth dimension. Yi Xian frowned. Clearly, the old monk saw that he was in a weak state and did not want to give up. This was a bit troublesome. Yi Xian asked in his heart, "Big sister, can I still use the prism pagoda?" Big sister said, "Yes. However, I'm afraid your lifespan is about to run out. Therefore, I don't recommend you use the prism pagoda again." Yi Xian was silent. If he did not use the prism pagoda, how could he fight against the ancient temple and the Tao realm? Now he had to stop the old monk and the divine object that was about to arrive. Otherwise, everyone would die. Perhaps the ancient temple would not slaughter the experts of the fifth dimension, but the Tao realm would. He could never place his hopes on the mercy of the enemy. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. This time, no one would help him. He had to rely on himself. Below, Guan Yin and Wen Xiu looked at Yi Xian. They knew that if Yi Xian could not withstand this, the fifth dimension would instantly collapse. Then the entire fifth dimension would either be slaughtered or enslaved. This battle was related to the fate of the fifth dimension. If he lost, there was no need to wait for the fifth dimension calamity. At this moment, the space above everyone's head suddenly split open. Then, a long blade appeared in everyone's line of sight. As soon as the saber appeared, the space it passed through turned into nothingness, before turning into a deathly stillness. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Buddhist commandment blade. This is one of the 3 great treasures of the ancient temple. This blade is blessed by the Buddhist Dharma of the ancient temple's senior monks. It naturally restrains evil and evil spirits. In addition, this blade has the power of reincarnation. Once you are hit by it, you will immediately enter the reincarnation hell, never to be reincarnated. The power of this object is even above that of the Tendo bell. This was Big Sister's voice. Yi Xian was somewhat puzzled. Big Sister, why do you know so much about the ancient temple's treasures? Big Sister was silent for a moment, then said, "Have you forgotten where teacher came from?" Hearing this, Yi Xian understood. Back then, Mr. had come out of the ancient temple. Yi Xian looked at the old monk. The old monk opened his palm, and the Buddhist commandment blade fell into his hand. The moment he held the blade, the old monk's aura suddenly changed. Previously, the old monk's aura was gentle, but now, the old monk's aura turned into an oppressive one. Furthermore, there was a hint of malice within the oppressive aura. Danger. This was what Yi Xian was feeling at the moment. This old monk was an upper self-release realm expert to begin with. Now that he obtained such a divine item, he was like a tiger that had grown wings. How could he block it? Yi Xian took a deep breath and walked towards the old monk. In fact, his best choice now was to temporarily avoid the brunt of the attack. However, he could not retreat. Once he retreated, everyone present would die. Of course, he still had another choice, and that was to hand over the study. However, if he were to hand over the study room, just like that to save his life, it would be better to die than to exchange that method for survival. As long as one was alive, one had to fight for something. Thus, Yi Xian chose to fight. Yi Xian walked towards the old monk. He walked very slowly, and in his hand was the executing heaven sword. The executing heaven sword wasn't his sword, but now, it had actually fused perfectly with him. As if it had sensed its master's fighting spirit, the executing heaven sword suddenly trembled violently, and numerous sword hums shook the starry sky. In the starry sky, Li Mian and the other 2 stared fixedly at Yi Xian. They still hadn't attacked. Their mission was very simple, and that was to stop the fifth dimension Tendo that might attack. As for the fifth dimension Tendo, he wasn't in the fifth dimension at all. In the starry sky of the Tao world, Moon Yinyan was walking slowly with a fish in her hand. Along the way, a voice rang out from beside her. He should be in danger now. Moon Yinyan didn't speak. The voice spoke again. Are you really not going to help? Moon Yinyan suddenly stopped and said softly, I don't have much time left. In my limited time, what I can do is not to help him defeat his opponents, but to let him have the strength to face any difficulties. What he needs is to grow. After saying that, she walked into the distance. The voice suddenly asked, You don't have much time left? What do you mean? Moon Yinyan smiled. Nothing, the voice said. What are you hiding from me? Moon Yinyan chuckled and didn't speak. Soon, she disappeared into the depths of the starry sky. In the fifth dimension, Yi Xian was still walking slowly towards the old monk. At this moment, he was actually very weak, and he couldn't even hide his weakness. The old monk looked at Yi Xian in front of him. He didn't speak anymore and swung his saber. One saber. Just one saber. And everyone's expression changed. That saber slashed out, and a dark gray saber aura cut through the starry sky, heading straight for Yi Xian. Wherever the dark gray saber aura passed, space turned into nothingness, spiritual energy collapsed, and everything returned to its origin. This saber directly injured the origin of the fifth dimension. Seeing this saber, Zhang Wenxiu's expression changed drastically. She directly rushed towards Yi Xian. She knew that the current Yi Xian couldn't block this saber. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Miss Guan, stop her." As soon as he said that, Guanyin directly blocked in front of Zhang Wenxiu. Guanyin looked at Zhang Wenxiu. "Believe in him. Believe in him." Zhang Wenxiu clenched her fists and stared at Yi Xian in the distance. At this moment, she suddenly realized that she really cared about this man in front of her. When did this start? Zhang Wenxiu was somewhat at a loss. In the distance, Yi Xian looked at the saber aura coming towards him. He knew that this time, he could only take it on himself. No one could help him. He could only rely on himself. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. At this time, the saber aura was already several dozen zhang in front of him. Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. Boom! A blood-red light shot out from his body and into the sky. In an instant, the entire sky was directly dyed blood-red. Seeing this scene, Li Mian and Mo Dao looked at each other, a trace of shock in their eyes. What kind of bloodline power was this? It was actually so powerful. Mo Dao suddenly said in a low voice. This bloodline is even stronger than the demonic path bloodline and the emperor bloodline. Li Mian nodded. He stared at Yi Xian below. This person's background is extraordinary. I'm afraid there's someone behind him. Generally, people with powerful bloodlines would definitely have someone behind them. The moment Yi Xian activated his bloodline, the executing heaven sword in his hand instantly turned into a blood-red sword. The sword changed according to its master. Meanwhile, the saber aura had arrived in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian took a step forward, and a sea of blood appeared beneath his foot. Yi Xian slashed with his sword. Bang! An expanse of blood-red light exploded apart. The saber aura was forcefully blocked by Yi Xian's sword. However, Yi Xian's figure trembled violently within the sea of blood. Because he'd merely blocked the saber aura, he hadn't destroyed it. Suddenly, the old monk swung his saber once more. This attack was even stronger than the previous one. A wisp of viciousness flashed through Yi Xian's eyes. And then he suddenly roared furiously. The blood domain appeared, and it was unprecedentedly strong after he activated his bloodline. Yi Xian slashed once more. This attack contained a single thought. He slashed with his sword. Bang! The saber aura in front of Yi Xian was instantly slashed into pieces. However, another saber aura tore through the air and arrived before him. Yi Xian swung his sword horizontally, and a blood-red ray of light shot forward. Bang! Yi Xian instantly retreated almost 3 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped moving, the sound of a bell suddenly resounded in the starry sky above him. The Tendo bell. Mo Dao had attacked again. The strength that Yi Xian had demonstrated scared the two of them. Such a monstrous genius had to be eliminated right now. Otherwise, he would definitely bring calamity to them in the future. At the instant that the bell resounded, the space above Yi Xian had split apart, and then a strange force tore through space and slashed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian raised his sword and stabbed forward, and a ray of blood-red light flickered on the tip of his sword. Bang! In an instant, a ray of blood-red light erupted. Yi Xian retreated another 3 kilometers, but before he could stop, the old monk suddenly appeared in front of him. The old monk silently recited a scripture, and then he swung his saber down. At the instant that the saber was swung, a strange force flickered on the blade. The power of samsara. Yi Xian blocked it with his sword. Bang! A ray of blood-red light rippled around Yi Xian, as Yi Xian retreated explosively. As he retreated, the old monk appeared in front of him once more, and he slashed down with his saber once more. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stomped his right foot. 3 domains suddenly appeared. At the instant that they appeared, the old monk was directly suppressed, and Yi Xian stabbed forward with his sword. At this moment, Yi Xian's sword was faster than the old monk's saber. Yi Xian's sword was aimed at the old monk's throat, and the old monk's saber was slashing towards Yi Xian's head. It was an internecine situation. The old monk did not retract his saber, and Yi Xian did not retract his sword. Bang! Bang! As 2 earth-shattering explosions rang out, the old monk and Yi Xian retreated frantically. The 2 of them retreated for a good 10,000 feet. The moment Yi Xian stopped, a cracking sound came from his body. Human King armor. The Human King armor that the old blacksmith had forged for him had cracked. Not only that, but a mysterious force was corroding the Human King armor, and it was disappearing at a visible speed. The power of samsara. The Human King armor actually could not block the power of samsara. In the distance, a golden kasaya had appeared on the old monk's body. It was this golden kasaya that had blocked Yi Xian's sword. The old monk looked at Yi Xian in the distance. He put his palms together and said softly, "Young Master Yi, you have given me too many surprises." He really did not expect that Yi Xian could rely on his own strength to fight him to this point. One had to know that he was several realms higher than Yi Xian. Most importantly, he was holding the Buddhist commandment saber just now. It could be said that with the Buddhist commandment saber, there were few who could match him in the same realm. But this Yi Xian was actually on par with him just now. He knew that it was because of Yi Xian's bloodline. He was shocked by this bloodline. What bloodline was this? It was actually so strong. Without thinking much, the old monk suddenly walked towards Yi Xian with the saber in hand. He walked very quickly, and a powerful aura swept across the field. This time, there was nothing that could block Yi Xian's Buddhist commandment saber. This saber would definitely kill Yi Xian. Soon, the saber's momentum was like a flood, sweeping the surroundings, and the starry sky trembled. Chapter 12:30. It was obvious that the old monk wanted to end Yi Xian with a single slash. The strength that Yi Xian displayed was simply too terrifying. Even the old monk was fearful. Yi Xian was able to block that slash earlier because of Yi Xian's armor. But now, Yi Xian didn't have any armor. The old monk was confident in this slash. At that moment, the executing heaven sword in Yi Xian's hand suddenly turned into a blood-red sword. The sword left behind by the man in green. Sword Spirit. The Sword Spirit suddenly transformed into a beam of blood-red light that entered the space between Yi Xian's brows. Bang! In an instant, the last bit of rationality in Yi Xian's eyes vanished. He had gone completely mad. Bang! A monstrous bloodline aura shot into the sky and shook the starry sky. There was a world of difference between half-mad and completely mad. After going completely mad, Yi Xian's aura and strength skyrocketed. A powerful aura of malevolence and killing intent swept towards the surroundings. In an instant, the entire starry sky was filled with killing intent and malevolence. At that moment, Yi Xian slashed down with his sword. His sword collided with the old monk's saber. Bang! Under everyone's gazes, the old monk instantly retreated 3 kilometers. The blood-red sword light didn't disperse. It was still on the saber. At that moment, a mysterious force suddenly appeared on the saber. The power of Buddhism. It could purify the murderous aura and malevolence. But at that moment, the saber was actually unable to purify the murderous aura and malevolence on the sword energy. It was the murderous aura and malevolence that came from the bloodline. The old monk held the saber with both hands and resisted Yi Xian's blood-red sword energy. Yi Xian was about to attack when the sound of a bell resounded in the distant sky. Tendo bell. Mo Dao had attacked again. Yi Xian suddenly turned around and slashed down with his sword. Hiss! In front of him, the strange power was directly shattered by his sword. Mo Dao and Li Mian's expressions changed when they saw that. Yi Xian has become so strong. Suddenly Li Mian said, "It's that sword." Mo Dao looked at the sword in Yi Xian's hand. This sword was even stronger than the executing heaven sword. Where did Yi Xian get so many divine objects? Below, Yi Xian walked towards the old monk. With every step he took, a bloody light would appear beneath his feet. It was true that every step he took was bloody. Far away, the old monk looked at Yi Xian with a grim expression. Because at that moment, not only did his Buddhist commandment blade fail to purify Yi Xian's killing intent and hostility, but it was almost eroded by Yi Xian's killing intent and hostility. What kind of bloodline power was this? The old monk was even more puzzled. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Qi! A blood-red sword light tore through the battlefield. The old monk narrowed his eyes and slashed down. Golden light flashed on the Buddhist commandment blade. As soon as the blade fell, a blood-colored sword Qi tore through the air. Bang! The blood-red light and golden light exploded. The old monk instantly retreated hundreds of meters, while Yi Xian retreated hundreds of meters. However, the old monk's expression grew even more solemn, because he realized that Yi Xian's aura was skyrocketing. Yi Xian was growing stronger and stronger. Most importantly, Yi Xian's body possessed extremely powerful healing abilities. Yi Xian had a huge advantage in a battle of attrition. The old monk looked up at Li Mian and Mo Dao. Please use your trump cards if you have any. Li Mian and Mo Dao fell silent. In the battlefield, their people had been blocked by Yi Xian's people. Although the two of them hadn't made a move yet, their goal was to resist the fifth dimension's heavenly Tao. At this moment, the old monk suddenly said, "If the three of us join forces and can kill him, then that's naturally good. If not, then we'll retreat." Li Mian and Mo Dao exchanged glances and nodded. At this moment, they naturally wouldn't play any tricks. Because at this moment, the death of the old monk from the ancient temple wouldn't benefit them at all. Right now Yi Xian's threat was even greater. The old monk suddenly charged out with his blade. Around him, rays of golden light surged into his blade. Seeing the old monk attack, Li Mian and Mo Dao didn't hesitate anymore, and immediately charged towards Yi Xian. 3 against 1. Although Yi Xian had the support of his bloodline and the sword spirit, he definitely couldn't defeat the 3 people in front of him. In fact, the moment Yi Xian went completely mad, he had already lost half of the battle. Completely mad meant that he had lost his rationality. If no one suppressed him, the greatest threat to the fifth dimension would be him, Yi Xian. Unfortunately, the old monk and the others didn't know this. Otherwise, they would immediately leave. In the starry sky, the 3 super strong people dashed towards Yi Xian. The space where Yi Xian was directly crushed by the 3 strong energies and became illusory. Right at this moment, a woman suddenly appeared before Li Mian and Mo Dao. It was Qian Mo. Li Mian and Mo Dao were slightly stunned when they saw this woman. It didn't take long for Li Mian to say, "Stop her." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged downwards. As for Mo Dao, he charged towards Qian Mo. Qian Mo didn't stop Li Mian. With her current strength, she could only stop a self-release realm expert. It didn't take long for the old monk and Li Mian to arrive in front of Yi Xian. Suddenly, an illusory Xiaota appeared between Yi Xian's brows. The old monk and Li Mian's expressions changed drastically when they saw this illusory pagoda, and they didn't hesitate to turn around and retreat. This retreat caused them to retreat over 10 kilometers away. Xiaota. Just now, Xiaota instantly killed 2 upper self-release realm experts. Not to mention Li Mian, even the old monk was extremely shocked. He was extremely fearful of Yi Xian's Xiaota, because he wasn't confident that he could stop Xiaota. For a time, the old monk and Li Mian didn't dare move. On the other hand, Yi Xian didn't stop. He didn't charge towards the old monk, and he charged towards the monk who was being suppressed by wine instead. Actually, the monk wasn't a match for wine anymore. However, it was difficult for wine to kill him as well. But now that Yi Xian had joined the battle, the situation had changed. The monk suddenly turned around, and a blood-red ray of sword light slashed over. The monk's pupils constricted slightly. He pressed his palms together, and a ray of golden light surged out from within him. However, the ray of golden light had just come into contact with Yi Xian's sword light, and instantly dispersed. Bang! The monk was pushed back, but right at this moment, another ray of sword light appeared behind him. Wine! The monk's expression changed drastically. and he suddenly turned around and slapped out with his palm. Bang! His palm forcefully blocked Agio's sword. But at this moment, a sword suddenly pierced through the back of his neck. Chi! The monk's eyes opened wide, and then his body gradually dissipated. Seeing the monk being killed by Yi Xian, the old monk's expression instantly turned gloomy. He stared fixedly at Yi Xian. He suddenly realized that even if the fifth dimension Tendo didn't attack, Yi Xian didn't seem to be easy to kill. Opposite Yi Xian, Wine was also looking at Yi Xian. Her eyes were filled with vigilance because she sensed killing intent from Yi Xian. The current Yi Xian didn't look normal at first glance. Wine looked at Yi Xian. Little junior brother, you wouldn't be thinking of hitting me, right? Yi Xian was just about to attack, when the blood-red sword in his hand suddenly trembled. In the next moment, Yi Xian turned around and charged towards the monk in the distance. Wine was slightly stunned when she saw this scene, and then she said softly, "The sword is guiding." The old monk noticed this as well. In the beginning, he was rather happy when he saw Yi Xian attack Wine, because it seemed like Yi Xian's mind wasn't normal, and he couldn't distinguish between friend and foe. However, when Yi Xian turned around to kill another monk, he was stunned. The sword is guiding. Although Yi Xian didn't have a mind, the sword in his hand did. The sword was guiding Yi Xian. Motherfucker, the old monk suddenly said, "Retreat! Retreat!" When he heard the old monk, the monk in the distance didn't hesitate at all. He turned around and vanished into the starry sky. Sita was slightly stunned. He fled a little too quickly. The old monk took a deep and long glance at Yi Xian, and then he turned around and left. He knew that he couldn't do anything to Yi Xian now. An expert at the upper self-release realm could suppress Yi Xian, but he couldn't kill Yi Xian, and might even lose to Yi Xian, who had gone completely mad. Li Mian and Situin immediately retreated when they saw the old monk and the others leave. It didn't take long for the experts of the ancient temple and the Tao world to leave. Guan Yin and the others instantly heaved sighs of relief when they saw this scene. But it didn't take long for them to look at Yi Xian. What about Yi Xian? Can he recover his mind? Everyone was looking at Yi Xian. Yi Xian stood in the starry sky with a sword in his right hand, while his body trembled incessantly. Boundless evil energy and killing intent were still around him. His aura was still rising madly. It seemed like it was endless, and it was extremely shocking. Actually, there was a serious problem, and it was that his aura was rising too quickly, and his body was slightly unable to endure it. After all, his body was already heavily injured when he forcefully utilized the pagoda of prison earlier. Now his bloodline energy was rising madly, and his body was actually unable to endure it. The most important problem was that no one here could suppress his bloodline. There was once someone who could, and it was the fifth dimension Tendo. But now, the fifth dimension Tendo wasn't here. Meanwhile, Zhang Wenxiu was about to go over, but he was stopped by a Jew. A Jew shook her head. "It's dangerous." Yi Xian was in an extremely dangerous state right now, and he might attack anyone who approached him. Zhang Wenxiu gazed at a Jew. "Can you suppress his bloodline?" A Jew shook her head. "No." The bloodline energy within Yi Xian was truly too formidable. Only someone who was much stronger than Yi Xian could possibly suppress the bloodline energy within Yi Xian's body. Zhang Wenxiu gazed at Yi Xian from afar, and her eyes were filled with worry. A Jew looked at the sword in Yi Xian's hand. "Sir, can you suppress his bloodline?" The reason why Yi Xian had gone completely mad was because of this sword. The sword trembled slightly, as though it was replying. A Jew frowned slightly. The sword's reply was, yes, she could not suppress Yi Xian's bloodline, but she could make Yi Xian's bloodline even crazier. A Jew gulped down a mouthful of wine, and then said, "What sword? I submit." At the side, Qianemo looked at Yi Xian, and slowly clenched her fists. Right now, Yi Xian's bloodline energy was at its strongest, and if she were to dual cultivate with him now. P.S. Brothers, do you have any good movies to recommend? Leave them, and I will look through them one by one, and then reply. Chapter 1231. At that moment, Qianemo suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian subconsciously wanted to attack, but he was affected by the sword spirit. Qianemo grabbed Yi Xian's shoulder with her right hand. In the next moment, she and Yi Xian disappeared from the scene. The expressions of Zhang Wenxiu and Lan Xiu and the others instantly changed, and they were about to pursue her when Audiobook said abruptly, "She won't harm her, and we can't harm her." The current Yi Xian wasn't someone Qianemo could fight against. If Qianemo harbored evil thoughts towards Yi Xian, that sword would protect Yi Xian. As long as that sword didn't affect Yi Xian, two Qianmos wouldn't be able to do anything to Yi Xian. Meanwhile, Guanyin suddenly appeared before Elderly. Elderly remained silent. Guanyin looked at Elderly. Strengthen the array formation at all costs. Elderly nodded. Understood. The array from before was very powerful. However, it was still not enough against a super expert like the old monk. If not for Yi Xian having the World Prism Pagoda, the fifth dimension would have already been defeated. Elderly turned around and left. He had already seen the flaws in the array formation. What he needed to do now was to strengthen the formation at all costs. Because Yi Xian was strong enough, there was no need to worry about whether Yi Xian could withstand it or not. What they had to worry about now was whether the formation was strong enough. Guanyin looked at the half-step self-release realm experts around him. Just now, when the 28 half-step self-release realm experts were fighting against the self-release realm experts, these 28 people had actually suppressed their opponents. From this, it could be seen that the difference between half-step escape 1 and upper escape 1 was not especially big. Of course, she was very clearly aware that that was only when facing an ordinary self-release realm expert. If she faced someone like the old monk, then she would absolutely not be a match. However, after this battle, those half-step self-release realm powerhouses' gains were not small. It was worth mentioning that in this battle, Guanyin still did not send the sword-sex swordsman to fight. This was a sword hidden in the fifth dimension. It had to be used at a critical moment. Guanyin turned around and left. She now realized that the overall level of the fifth dimension was still not good enough. She still had to speed up. In the battlefield, Audiobook looked into the depths of the starry sky and drank. No one knew what she was thinking. At this moment, Sidhu walked to her side and asked, "What do you think?" Audiobook shook her head. "It's not a true self-release." Sidhu nodded. Indeed, the banished immortal island was no ordinary place. An invincible super swordsman once lived there. As the successor of that person, the two of them were much more knowledgeable than ordinary people. Audiobook continued. "Looks like the sixth dimension and the Tao world aren't the limit." Sidhu looked at Audiobook and did not speak. Wine suddenly turned to look at Arrow in the distance. "You're still missing one thing." Sidhu also looked at Arrow. It could be said that apart from the two of them, Arrow's strength was the most terrifying. Arrow looked at Audiobook, who said, "Follow me." With that, she turned around and left. Arrow did not reject. She followed. Her talent and strength were top-notch, but most of the time, talent alone was not enough. She also needed a bit of luck. Sidhu suddenly pointed at Seven in the distance. Audiobook looked at Seven and shook her head. "I can't. Seven. In terms of talent, no one here could compare to Seven. She was a true monster. Her current sword path attainments were actually not lower than Audiobook's, but her realm was a little weaker. One could say that if Seven reached half a step self-release, even Audiobook might not be able to beat her." Seven looked at Audiobook and Arrow and did not say a word. Below, and Lan Xiu and Zhang Wenxiu did not leave. The two of them were still worried about Yi Xian. Seven suddenly said, "That sword is very strong." The two of them looked at Seven and she said softly, "That woman can't hurt him, don't worry." With that, she turned around and left. As a swordsman, she could feel how strong the sword in Yi Xian's hand was. And Lan Xiu and Zhang Wenxiu looked at each other, and then the two of them turned around and left. The starry sky regained its calm. In front of the fifth dimension's barrier, a woman also turned around and left. This person was Wenjiaruo. She had always been paying attention to the fifth dimension, the Tao world, and the ancient temple. She was very shocked. First, she did not expect the ancient temple to be so strong that they could easily send out so many self-release experts. Second, she did not expect that Yi Xian could actually block the alliance of the Tao world and the fifth dimension. Yi Xian was very strong. And the fifth dimension was not as weak as she thought. The ancient temple was even stronger than she expected. The current sixth dimension also needed to change. At least it needed to become more united. On this day, when Jaro's heart was heavy, because she felt pressure, the old monk brought a monk back to the foot of the sacred mountain. This time, the ancient temple could be said to have suffered heavy losses. They lost 3 super experts, 2 of whom were at the upper self-release realm. Did they underestimate Yi Xian? No. This time, they really did not underestimate Yi Xian. The ancient temple sent so many experts down at once, and they even joined forces with the Tao world. In terms of lineup, it could be said that they completely crushed the fifth dimension. Moreover, he used the Buddhist commandment blade. However, they were defeated. They were defeated miserably. At this time, a white-robed monk suddenly appeared in front of the 2 of them. Seeing this white-robed monk, the 2 of them hurriedly bowed respectfully. "Governor Elder." The Governor Elder said softly, "Didn't that Miss Mu make a move?" The old monk shook his head. "Not yet," the Governor Elder said softly. "Then it seems that we have underestimated this young benefactor Yi Xian." The old monk looked at the Governor Elder. "Governor Elder, this Yi Xian's bloodline is extremely strange. Even the Buddhist commandment blade can't do anything to it." The Governor Elder said, "There is only one explanation. This bloodline ancestor's cultivation is above the previous elders. Their dharma cultivation is inferior to the bloodline origin. Of course, this is also because this Yi Xian's bloodline awakened to a deep enough degree that the Buddhist commandment blade can't purify it." The old monk frowned slightly. "This ancestor Yi Xian?" The Governor Elder's right hand gently turned the prayer beads in his hand. "It seems that we still know too little about this young Master Yi. The karma of his body is far from being a prophet. Both of you rest well. I will personally go and understand." The old monk was a little surprised. "Governor Elder, are you going down the mountain?" The Governor Elder said with a smile. "After cultivating for so many years, I also want to go out and see the scenery. Reading 10,000 books is not as good as walking 10,000 miles. Just take it as a stroll and relax." The old monk and the other monk put their palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. The Governor Elder smiled and walked down the mountain. After a while, he disappeared at the foot of the mountain. After a long silence, the old monk and the other monk also disappeared at the end of the Shao Dao. In fact, the ancient temple had a rule. It did not care about the matters at the foot of the mountain. Therefore, the people of the world knew very little about the ancient temple. However, this time, the ancient temple had to care because the Tao scripture and Buddhist scripture were very important to the ancient temple. Tao world. On the way back to the Tao world, Li Mian and Emo Dao's expressions were extremely grave. They did not expect that they would lose this time after joining hands with the Tao world. Moreover, the fifth dimension Tendo did not make a move from the beginning to the end. At this time, Emo Dao suddenly said, "We have to find out the power of Yi Xian's bloodline, and that Xiao Ta." Li Mian nodded. Yi Xian's greatest threat to them was the power of bloodline, and that Xiao Ta. These 2 were really too great a threat to them. That Xiao Ta directly killed 2 self-released tier elites, and that power of bloodline. After Yi Xian activated the power of bloodline, it was like he had changed into a different person. He could completely face an upper-level self-released tier elite head-on. Moreover, this upper-level self-released tier elite was holding a super divine tool. This was practically like cheating. Too freakish. Emo Dao sighed in a low voice. "This person must not be left alive. Otherwise, our Tao world will be in danger in the future." Li Mian nodded, deeply agreeing. What cultivation level was Yi Xian now? Just the shattering void tier. If Yi Xian reached the self-release tier, with his terrifying power of bloodline, and a pile of terrifying divine equipment, who in the Tao world could stop him? This kind of person could really threaten the Tao world. Li Mian suddenly said, "No matter what, we have to make the Pope pay attention to Yi Xian this time. We can't treat Yi Xian with any contempt or carelessness. Otherwise, our Tao world will pay a terrible price in the future." Emo Dao nodded. This time, the Tao world's losses were smaller than the ancient temples, but next time might not be the same. Especially a monster like Yi Xian. If Yi Xian was given more time, the consequences would be simply unimaginable. Now the two of them were most worried that the Pope and the others still did not know how terrifying Yi Xian was. It wasn't just Yi Xian. The overall strength of the fifth dimension was not as weak as the Tao world thought. There were a few people in the fifth dimension that could actually fight a self-release tier elite. This was extremely terrifying. Soon Mo Dao and the others quickened their pace. Qian Mo brought Yi Xian to the ice mountain where they had first met. She turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian's entire body was blood red, and his body emitted an extremely powerful hostility and killing intent. Yi Xian's eyes were like a sea of blood, extremely frightening. Qian Mo waved her right hand, and the World Prism Pagoda in Yi Xian's body appeared in her hand. She covered the World Prism Pagoda with her right hand and sealed it. Then, she looked at Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian's power of bloodline was completely stimulated. If they dual cultivated at this time, she would obtain great benefits. Qian Mo looked at Yi Xian for a long time. After a long time she said, "Doing it once or 10 times is the same. What's the difference?" After saying that, she waved her right hand, and Yi Xian's clothes instantly turned to ashes. Yi Xian was about to make a move, but the sword in his hand trembled. The sword spirit couldn't make him sober, but she could affect Yi Xian because she had the same attribute as Yi Xian. Of course, there was another more important reason, and that was that she wasn't affected by Yi Xian. If it was the executing heaven sword, it wouldn't work. Once the executing heaven sword turned red, it would be the same as Yi Xian, without any intelligence. Moreover, the executing heaven sword wouldn't resist Yi Xian. However, the sword spirit was different. Yi Xian's baleful aura and hostility weren't able to affect her. At this time, Qian Mo suddenly pulled the silk belt on her waist. With this pull, her clothes fell off, and the two of them looked at each other. Qian Mo looked at Yi Xian. She walked in front of Yi Xian and began. Chapter 1232. Dual Cultivation. This time, Qian Mo was not as casual as before because she was clear-headed. She needed to borrow Yi Xian's bloodline power to break through, not to enjoy it. When the two of them interacted, Qian Mo's aura suddenly soared. If she had guessed correctly, the current Yi Xian was most suitable for dual cultivation, because Yi Xian's bloodline had been completely activated. This was also beneficial to Yi Xian. This was because the killing intent and hostility on Yi Xian's body was gradually decreasing. Although they were in an ice mountain, the two of them were like two balls of fire. Qian Mo looked at Yi Xian below her. She looked at Yi Xian with calm eyes. Feelings? She naturally did not have any feelings for Yi Xian. Her and Yi Xian becoming like this could be said to be an ill-fated relationship. No, the first time could be said to be ill-fated, but this time, Qian Mo felt complicated. Deal? Strictly speaking, she and Yi Xian were making a deal, but she did not want to admit that it was a deal. After a long time, Qian Mo shook her head. Whether it was against her heart or a deal, since she had already chosen to do this, she might as well go crazy. Soon, panting sounds could be heard from the ice mountain. About 4 hours later, a powerful force suddenly rushed into the sky from the ice mountain. At this moment, Qian Mo had already put on her clothes. Powerful auras continuously spread out from her body, and the surrounding ice mountain started to melt. Bloodline breakthrough. After borrowing Yi Xian's bloodline power, her mortal bloodline had broken through its shackles. Now she was no longer restricted by her bloodline. Not only that, she had also used this bloodline breakthrough to reach the upper self-release realm. She was a top expert of this world. Qian Mo closed her eyes and clenched her fists. At this moment, her body was filled with endless power. Upper self-release realm. If she met that old monk now, she would not fear him at all. Ordinary self-release realm experts would not be her match. Fifth dimension Tendo. At this moment, she thought of the fifth dimension Tendo. However, when she thought of that woman, a sense of helplessness rose from the depths of her heart. Even if she reached the upper realm of self-release, she still did not have the confidence to challenge Mu Ninian. That woman was so powerful that it made people despair. Qianemo looked into the distance. In the distant ice mountain, there were countless ice people. Most of them were her clansmen. They were all killed by Mu Ninian. Back then, she had brought her clansmen to this universe. Her thoughts at that time were very simple. She wanted to destroy Tendo and make her clan the ruler of this universe. Unfortunately, she had underestimated the strength of the fifth dimension Tendo. Too many experts from her family had died in that battle. After a long time, Qianemo shook her head. She did not want to think about revenge. That woman didn't kill her even after she reached the self-release realm. There was only one explanation: she wasn't afraid of her. Qianemo opened her palm, and the World Prism Pagoda appeared in her hand. She had witnessed Xiao Ta's might in the previous battle. According to her guess, the Tao scripture was very likely in Xiao Ta's body. However, she did not have any other thoughts. She turned to look at the nearby Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian had already returned to normal, but he was still not awake. Qianemo pointed with her finger, and the World Prism Pagoda flew towards Yi Xian. Forcefully seized the World Prism Pagoda? She had never had such thoughts because she knew that even if the Tao scripture fell into her hands, she would not be able to keep it. It could be said that once she seized this Tao scripture, her enemies would not only be the Tao world and the ancient temple, but also Yi Xian's side. This Tao scripture was very tempting, but ordinary people would die if they obtained it. Qianemo walked in front of Yi Xian and squatted down, looking at Yi Xian. In fact, if she wanted to sever her ill-fated relationship with Yi Xian, it was very simple. She would just have to kill Yi Xian. She had this thought before. Qianemo looked at Yi Xian for a long time before turning to leave. Regardless of whether it was an ill-fated relationship or not, she did not want to care so much. Right now, she had more important things to do. In a short while, Qianemo left the fifth dimension. Inside the ice mountain, about an hour later, Yi Xian slowly opened his eyes. Yi Xian hurriedly sat up and looked around. Ice mountain. At this moment, the sword beside him suddenly trembled. Soon Yi Xian knew everything. After a long silence, Yi Xian said softly, "Did she leave?" After saying that, he looked up at the depths of the starry sky. Qianemo should have returned to the Tao world. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian looked at himself. At this moment, his bloodline power had returned to normal. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly took out a mirror. In the mirror, he looked at his hair and saw some white strands. When he saw this, Yi Xian's face sank. "Big sister, how many years of lifespan do I have left?" Big sister said, 10 years. If you activate the Prism Pagoda again, you will die on the spot. 10 years of lifespan. Yi Xian was stunned. He played with the pagoda for a bit, and almost played himself to death? Big sister suddenly said, "You must break through to the Origin Breaker realm as soon as possible. If you break through, your lifespan will increase. Only then will you be able to continue using the Prism Pagoda." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Big sister, this pagoda has already recognized me as its master, and all of you cooperated with me. Why is there such a huge backlash?" Big sister fell silent for a moment before she said, "I did not expect there to be such a huge backlash. It should be because of the gathering of Tao laws. After the gathering of Tao laws, the power of Tao laws produced isn't something you can endure right now. The power of Tao laws. Needless to say, these Tao laws were really strong." Big sister did not lie to him. With the gathering of Tao laws, he was invincible in the fifth dimension. Of course, he had to get rid of that Mu Ninian. Not to mention, even with the Prism Pagoda, he wasn't confident in being able to trap that Mu Ninian. Perhaps even the prophet himself at his peak with this pagoda wouldn't be able to. Big sister suddenly said, "What do you intend to do with those 2 monks in the pagoda?" Yi Xian immediately returned to the pagoda. He went to the first floor. On the first floor, those 2 monks were still imprisoned by Xiao Ta. With a single thought from him, those 2 monks would immediately die because their cultivations had been sealed by the Prism Pagoda. Yi Xian walked over to those 2 monks and sized them up. The 2 of them sat cross-legged on the ground with their palms pressed together and were silently chanting. Yi Xian looked at them for a long time before shaking his head and turning to leave. He didn't say anything. because he knew that he couldn't subdue those two. These people weren't even afraid of death. However, he didn't kill them. They would definitely be useful in the future. These were two upper self-release realm experts. The ancient temple wouldn't ignore them. After Yi Xian left the prison pagoda, he looked at the sword in his hand. The sword spirit. Besides the power of his bloodline, there was another reason he could fight that old monk, and that was the sword spirit. The sword spirit was a perfect match for his bloodline. It was even better than the executing heaven sword. Unfortunately, the sword spirit didn't communicate with him. Without thinking too much about it, Yi Xian put the sword spirit away and vanished. Right now he still had a lot of things to do. The Tao world. Because of the disappearance of the Tao spirit, the spirit energy in various parts of the Tao world had dried up. However, the people of the Tao world didn't care about this problem. They only had eyes for the Tao scripture. The precious Tao scripture that had once descended into the Tao world. Just one page was enough to change one's destiny. The God Palace, Mo Dao, and the others were standing in front of the Pope. The Immortal Pavilion's master, Jiangyu, was there as well. The hall was very quiet. The Pope and Jiangyu hadn't expected that they would fail this time. Moreover, they had failed while working together with the ancient temple. Meanwhile, Jiangyu suddenly said, "It looks like things aren't as simple as we thought." The Pope was expressionless. "I just don't know if the Tao scripture is in Yi Xian's hands," Li Mian said solemnly. "Pope, I think that even if the Tao scripture isn't in Yi Xian's hands, we still can't let him live. He's related to Yi Qingji, and coupled with his terrifying talent, I'm afraid no one in the Tao world will be able to keep him in check in time." Jiangyu nodded. "Indeed, although the Tao scripture is important, we have to be on guard against this person. He has such combat strength at such a young age. If he reaches self-release, then not to mention others, even you and I won't be able to do anything to him. Moreover, even if he doesn't have the Tao scripture, he should have read it. Since that's the case, why don't we just target him?" The Pope fell silent. Jiangyu continued, "Even if Di Linyuan obtains the Tao scripture, it's impossible for him to break through in a short period of time. So long as we obtain the Tao scripture from Yi Xian, then we'll have a very good chance of breaking through before Di Linyuan." Li Mian nodded. Pavilion Master Jiang is right. Killing Yi Xian won't just allow us to obtain the Tao scripture. We'll be able to eliminate a calamity. As for Di Linyuan, even if he obtains the Tao scripture, he'll definitely be heavily injured, and won't be able to break through in a short period of time. Meanwhile, Mo Dao suddenly said, "What if the woman in a plain dress is still alive?" The woman in a plain dress. Everyone here fell silent when they heard this. All of them felt that Di Linyuan was still alive, because they felt that the woman in a plain dress had definitely been heavily injured while fighting a sixth self-release realm expert. However, they'd overlooked something, and it was that the woman in a plain dress had killed 6 self-release realm experts. So it was very likely that the woman in a plain dress was still alive. Jiangyu suddenly said, "If she's still alive and has a close relationship with Yi Xian, then she'll definitely appear as well if we act against Yi Xian. We'll be able to kill 3 birds with 1 stone." As he spoke, he gazed at the cult master. The cult master fell silent for a moment before he said, "Brother Jiang is right. Then let's deal with Yi Xian with all our strength. Brother Jiang, join forces with those self-release realm experts of the Tao world. I'll personally head to the Tao world and contact the ancient temple. Let's see what their attitude is." Jiangyu nodded. "All right." As soon as he finished speaking, he stood up and left. The cult master turned around and vanished as well. Li Mian and Jiangyu exchanged glances, and then Li Mian spoke solemnly, "I hope we'll be able to kill Yi Xian this time." Mo Dao nodded. Since the sect master and pavilion master have taken him seriously, then Yi Xian will definitely die. The cult master and Jiangyu's intentions were very clear. They intended to gather the strength of the entire Tao world and the ancient temple to deal with Yi Xian. P.S. Asking for votes. I haven't asked for votes in a very long time. Chapter 1233. In the 5th dimension. After Yi Xian returned to the Wu clan, He immediately went into seclusion. His gains from the previous battle were not small, especially the battle with the old monk. The old monk was at the upper self-release realm. Being able to fight with such an expert was an opportunity for him, an opportunity to break through. While Yi Xian was in seclusion, Guan Yin came to the sword sect. At this time, the sword sect had 126 people. Among them, the weakest was at the origin returning realm. The sword sect also had 8 people at the half-step self-release realm. Although it was few, the battle strength of these 8 people could definitely reach the self-release realm. Because the previous battle made Guan Yin realize that ordinary self-release realm experts were not that scary. Some of the top monsters in the 5th dimension could fight against self-release realm experts. And the swordsmen of the sword sect were all monsters. Guan Yin found Senior Sister Lu, and the two of them strolled in a xiao dao in the forest. Senior Sister Lu said, "The next time they come, they should be stronger and have more people." Guan Yin nodded. "Yes." Senior Sister Lu looked at Guan Yin. "When can we go out to battle?" Guan Yin was silent for a moment, then said, "The 6th dimension and the Dao world know very little about the sword sect. This is our chance. The sword sect doesn't make a move, but once they do, we will decide the outcome." Senior Sister Lu said softly, "Yes." Guan Yin said, "If the sword sect needs anything, you can tell me." Senior Sister Lu said, "I want Lady Ajiu to come to the sword sect." "Ajiu." Guan Yin nodded. "I will talk to Lady Ajiu." In terms of sword Dao attainments, Ajiu was undoubtedly the highest in the 5th dimension. If Ajiu came to the sword sect to give pointers, it would definitely be of great benefit to the swordsmen of the sword sect. Senior Sister Lu suddenly said, "We are very passive now, because we know very little about the ancient temple and the Dao world." Guan Yin nodded. "I know," Senior Sister Lu said. "Is there a way to solve it?" Guan Yin shook his head. "Even the Union Hall doesn't know much about the ancient temple. As for the Dao world, we have no way of contacting it." At this point she frowned. "Something's wrong." Senior Sister Lu said, "Xiao Dao." Guan Yin turned around and left. She had to contact Xiao Dao. After a moment of silence, Senior Sister Lu walked into the distance. Before long, she arrived in front of a statue. It was the statue of the founder of the sword sect. Looking at the statue of the green-robed man, Senior Sister Lu said softly, "After so many years, there's actually no news of you. You're too cruel." A moment later, Senior Sister Lu turned around and left. The Dao world, a demonic path family clan. In a room, Xiao Dao rolled up a letter and handed it to Emo Zhong in front of him. "Go to 5th dimension and give this to Yi Xian." The Emo Zhong put the letter away and said, "This is?" Xiao Dao said softly, "They know too little about the Dao world. This is the information I've collected about the Dao world. With this information, they will have a rough idea of the Dao world's strength." Emo Zhong nodded. "Understood." With that he turned and left. In the room, Xiao Dao kept quiet for a long time before he said softly, "Don't die. Or else, who am I going to return this favor to?" The monarch race. Di Ming was now the clan master of the monarch race. As for Di Linyuan, the monarch race could only treat him as dead. Di Ming sitting in the palace. In front of him was a self-release expert from the monarch race, Di Lian. He was the one sent by Di Ming to 5th dimension to observe Yi Xian. After a long time of silence, Di Ming said softly, "5th dimension one." One had to admit that Di Ming was shocked. The Dao world sent down 6 self-release realm experts. Moreover, the ancient temple also sent out so many self-release realm experts, but they were defeated. Yi Xian had killed 2 upper self-release realm powerhouses by himself. Though he did it with the help of external forces, it was still terrifying. Most importantly, in the 5th dimension, Yi Xian wasn't the only one who could fight self-release experts alone. There were many others who could. There were so many monsters in the 5th dimension. At this moment, Di Lian suddenly said, "The overall strength of the 5th dimension is not as weak as we thought. Of course, the ancient temple's strength is also beyond our expectations." Ancient temple? Di Ming nodded. This ancient temple was able to send 3 upper-level self-release experts. This strength was no weaker than the Dao world's top forces. Ming suddenly asked. What is the attitude of the sixth dimension? Di Lian said solemnly. The sixth dimension is helping Yi Xian. But when the Tao world and ancient temple joined hands against the fifth dimension, the sixth dimension did not send anyone to help. Ming nodded. I understand. The sixth dimension is providing Yi Xian with soft help. Seems like the sixth dimension's Union Palace has discovered something. That's why they are helping Yi Xian. Di Lian said. Yes, in terms of strength, the fifth dimension has no advantage, but the sixth dimension's Union Palace still chose to help. The reason is simple, they believe in Yi Xian. Di Lian looked at Di Ming. Clan Master, the Pope, Celestial Pavilion, and Ancient Temple will not let this go easily. If we help Yi Xian, we will definitely offend them. But now, it's not a good time for us to be dragged into this mess. Di Ming shook. No, I'm the opposite of what you think. I think this might be an opportunity for us. Di Lian frowned. Opportunity? Di Ming nodded. Have you ever thought about what will happen to us if the Pope and Jiang Yu really get the scripture? By then, a single word from them will make us kneel before them. We won't even have a chance to resist. Di Lian remained silent. For now, the Bloodshed God Palace and Celestial Pavilion wouldn't dare to annihilate the monarch races, because they still had the ability to resist. If they were to do so, even if the monarch races were annihilated, they would still be able to take a bite out of them. However, if the Pope and Jiang Yu obtained the scripture, once they broke through, the monarch races would have no choice but to submit to them. Di Lian said. The risk is too great. Di Ming nodded. Too great. If the monarch races were to help Yi Xian, they might face the wrath of the Bloodshed God Palace and Celestial Pavilion. But now, because of the scripture, many factions in the Tao world had gathered around these two factions. Though they weren't as strong as the monarch races, they were still a force to be reckoned with. In other words, the monarch races were no match for the Bloodshed God Palace and Celestial Pavilion. Di Ming was silent for a moment. He said, We can help them in the dark. Di Lian frowned. Help them in the dark? Di Ming said softly. Give them money, cultivation resources, and divine items. As he spoke, he looked at Di Lian. Get ready, take out some of the divine items and cultivation resources from the treasury, then have someone who isn't from the monarch races send them to the fifth dimension. Di Lian asked, Family, is this worth it? Di Ming nodded. If we can befriend Yi Xian, it will be worth it. If Yi Xian fails, we will only lose some worldly possessions. So it's worth it. Di Lian hesitated. If the Bloodshed God Palace and Celestial Pavilion find out Di Ming sneered coldly. Do you think that if we don't help Yi Xian, the Bloodshed God Palace and Celestial Pavilion will let us go? They won't. We and the demonic clans are just meat in their eyes. Once they are free, they will devour us. Because of the scripture, they have gathered some factions around them. Hence, we are no match for them. Di Lian nodded. Understood. As he finished, he left silently. Moments later, Di Lian left with some of the monarch race's wealth and cultivation resources. In front of the palace, Di Ming slowly closed his eyes. There was another reason why he chose Yi Xian, compared to the Bloodshed God Palace and Celestial Pavilion. He hoped that Yi Xian could seize the opportunity to rise. That way, Yi Xian would break the balance of power in the Tao world. That way, the Tao world would be balanced, and the monarch races would have a chance. Of course, there was another reason. According to the investigation, Yi Xian was a loyal swordsman. A person like him was more trustworthy than the Bloodshed God Palace and Celestial Pavilion. What Di Ming didn't notice was that not far away from him, just a few feet away from him, was a lady standing there. It was the fifth dimension Tendo Moon Yin. Moon Yin remained silent for a long time before she turned and left. She left just like that, but the monarch didn't notice her at all. It was strange. As Moon Yin walked out of the palace, her lips curved into a smile. At this moment, she suddenly thought of a human saying, A just cause enjoys abundant support, an unjust cause finds little. Though Yi Xian wasn't as cruel and ruthless as the other monarchs, it was because of his benevolence that he gained the recognition and help of many. Many times benevolence and justice were still very useful, because no one would want to be friends with a monarch. At this moment Moon Yinyan stopped abruptly. She placed her right hand on her chest and frowned. A voice sounded beside her. "What's wrong?" Moon Yinyan shook her head and continued walking. The voice said, "Is there something wrong with your body?" "No." Moon Yinyan smiled. "You still want to lie to me?" The voice said in a deep voice. Moon Yinyan giggled. "Don't worry, I'm really fine." The voice said, "You're lying. Let's not talk about this." Moon Yinyan shrugged. "I still have some matters to deal with. Otherwise, that little guy will have a hard time living." The voice said angrily, "Why did you interfere with his matters? Is it because you interfered with his matters that your body has problems?" After a moment of silence, Moon Yinyan shook her head. "There's something wrong with my body in the first place. However, I've underestimated his karma. I can resist the prophet, but some karma, it's a bit like the cause of disaster." As she said that, she looked up into the depths of the starry sky and frowned. Who was it that used such a vicious karma technique on him? The other party's attainments in karma are countless times better than the prophet's. The voice said, "Then don't interfere with his matters." "It's too late." Moon Yinyan smiled. The voice was a bit anxious. "Is it too late to give up now?" "It's indeed too late," Moon Yinyan said softly. As she said that, she lowered her head and looked down. "I suddenly feel a bit sorry for him. Although he has the plain-dressed woman to protect him, this road isn't easy to walk on." As she said that, she walked into the distance, and around her, some red threads invisible to the naked eye appeared. Chapter 1234. In the five-dimensional universe. After 3 days of seclusion, Yi Xian left his room. Outside the door, Yi Xian looked up at the horizon with his hands spread wide. His blood was flowing quickly inside his body, and he felt extremely comfortable. It had to be said that fighting was the best way for a person to grow. The battle with the old monk had given him a lot of benefits. However, he also knew that if it was a normal fight, he was far from being the old monk's opponent. Realm. This was his biggest problem right now. If he reached the self-release realm, he would be able to fight with the old monk even without external objects. If he used the prism pagoda, he would be able to kill an expert of the old monk's level. However, the backlash of the prism pagoda was a big problem, so he didn't dare to casually use it. The backlash of the 9 Dao laws was too terrifying. At this time, Guanyin suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian and said, "The Dao world Xiao Dao sent us a message." Yi Xian looked at Guanyin. "What did she say?" Guanyin said in a deep voice, "The Dao world is much stronger than we imagined. Moreover, they seem to have reached an agreement to deal with us." Yi Xian said softly, "The Dao world, the ancient temple?" Guanyin nodded. "Yes, they will join hands." Yi Xian smiled. "How is the formation?" Guanyin said, "Old Li and the others are still being modified. This time, if the enemy invades, we will let all the experts of the 5th dimension attack together, so that you can gather their strength. However, this is very dangerous." Yi Xian was silent. The previous formation didn't borrow the strength of all the experts of the 5th dimension, because they were afraid that he wouldn't be able to bear that kind of power. However, they discovered that if they didn't borrow the strength of the 5th dimension, the formation's power was very limited. Yi Xian was silent as he recalled the power of the formation. At that time, his body could bear the power of the formation, but there was pressure. In other words, if the formation added the strength of the 5th dimension, he might not be able to bear it. Yi Xian suddenly said, "I'm fine." Guanyin looked at Yi Xian. "This isn't a joke." Yi Xian smiled and said, "I know. Let Old Li and the others do as they please. Also make arrangements because they might come again soon, and this time, the people who come will be stronger than we imagined." Guanyin nodded. "Understood." With that she turned around and left. Yi Xian looked up at the sky. Above the starry sky, there were enemies everywhere. When would it end? Yi Xian was at a loss. The current him was no longer the Qingqing crown prince of the past. He could see things further. His intuition told him that the matter with Yi Xian would probably never end. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly turned around. Who's there? As soon as he finished speaking, the sword in his hand suddenly trembled, and he was about to leave its sheath. Meanwhile, a black-clothed man walked out. Self-release realm. He wasn't from the fifth dimension. The black-clothed man cupped his fists at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi. I am Di Lian of the Dao World's Emperor clan. Originally, he wanted to send someone else, but he might as well do it himself. At least, he wouldn't betray the Emperor clan. But that might not be the case with someone else. Emperor clan? Yi Xian frowned slightly. What's the matter? He naturally knew about this Emperor clan Dao Yi. It was a superpower in the Dao world that was similar to the demon Dao family. Di Lian flicked his finger, and a storage ring landed in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at the storage ring, then looked at Di Lian. This is... Di Lian said. Young Master Yi. This is a token of our Emperor clan's appreciation. Young Master Yi, please accept it. Yi Xian looked at Di Lian. What do you want? Di Lian said. Just to form a good relationship. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before saying. All right. I'm willing to form a good relationship with your clan. After saying that, he put away the storage ring. Seeing Yi Xian put it away, Di Lian instantly felt relieved. If Yi Xian didn't accept it, then the Emperor clan could only choose to stand on the Pope's side. Di Lian collected his thoughts, then said, according to what I know, the Dao World Immortal Pavilion's Pavilion Master, Jiang Yu, has already contacted some forces in the Dao world. And the Pope has personally gone to the ancient temple in the sixth dimension. Young Master Yi, you must prepare as soon as possible. Yi Xian said. What forces are the Pope and the Immortal Pavilion's Pavilion Master? Di Lian said in a low voice. Thousands of years ago, the two of them had already reached the peak of self-release realm. Now they might be at the peak of self-release realm. Peak of self-release realm. Yi Xian fell silent. Di Lian said. It's very difficult for those who aren't at the self-release realm to descend here. Moreover, even if they use a secret technique to descend here, it'll still be greatly restricted. So, young Master Yi's opponents are at least at the self-release realm, and there might be quite a few of them. Yi Xian nodded. Thank you for telling me. I understand. Di Lian cupped his fists and left silently. It wasn't suitable for him to stay here any longer. After Di Lian left, Yi Xian remained silent for a short while before he said, Big sister, did the prophet leave any help behind? Big sister replied, No. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, Isn't he the #1 genius of the Dao world? Isn't he the descendant of the former #1 expert of the Dao world, Yi Lanting? Is there any way to get Yi Lanting to help? Big sister said, You need to calm down. Yi Xian sighed softly. I can't calm down. Who the fuck can endure this? I can't even deal with an upper-level self-release realm expert. Now I've come to the extreme self-release realm, and I can't even catch my breath. Really, big sister, get me an expert. I don't want to work hard anymore. It's too fucking difficult. Big sister was speechless. The 9th floor suddenly said, Kid, didn't you say you wanted to rely on yourself? What kind of person are you calling? Yi Xian said furiously, It's easy for you to say that. The 9th floor said, Who said I wanted to rely on myself? Yi Xian said, I've changed my mind, alright? Fuck. The 9th floor said, You're amazing. Unfortunately, the woman in a plain dress has left, the man in green clothes is nowhere to be found, and the 5th dimension Tendo has fled as well. Hehe, you have no one to call. Yi Xian fell silent. The 9th floor said, Actually, you can treat these hardships as a form of training. Isn't there an old saying? If a piece of iron doesn't go through endless tempering, how can it become a sharp sword? You're this piece of iron now. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Senior, haven't you noticed a problem? My enemies have always been abnormal. They've always been several realms higher than me. Look, I haven't even left the 5th dimension, but I have enemies in the 6th dimension, and in the Dao realm, and they're the most powerful kind. I dare to bet that before long, I'll definitely have enemies stronger than the Dao realm and the ancient temple. The 9th floor. Yi Xian said again. Some enemies I'll admit, but some enemies I really can't understand. The The ninth floor said, "You've received benefits from the prophet. You can hand over the study house." Yi Xian said with a smile, "Senior, do you really think it's over if I hand over the study house?" "No, even if I hand over the study house, those people won't let me go. I'm very clear about the hearts of these powerful forces. To cut the grass, you have to remove the roots. Not to mention the Dao realm. Even in Qingcheng, those families know how to do this." The ninth floor was silent. As Yi Xian had said, even if Yi Xian handed over the Dao scripture, those people in the Dao realm wouldn't let him go. To remove the roots, how could the people in the Dao realm let a demon like Yi Xian grow up? Moreover, both sides were already at odds with each other. Yi Xian continued saying, "Karma, karma, karma. It's said that there's a cause before there's an effect. But senior, have you noticed that many of my causes aren't caused by myself? On the contrary, I've been reaping the effects of others. I'm not complaining, I'm just a little tired." The ninth floor said, "Kid, I'll give you a suggestion. Perhaps you can talk to the fifth dimension Tendo." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Fifth dimension Tendo?" The ninth floor said, "Yes. To be honest, kid, after you open the study house, I'll take a look at the Dao scripture and leave. Really, because I realized that following you might not end well for me." Yi Xian was speechless. "After being with you for so long, I've come to realize that you're toxic. It's just as you said, you have an endless supply of enemies. Some of them are known, but there are also many that are unknown. Now that I'm with you, I'm starting to get a little nervous. Let's not talk about anything else, but I feel that something isn't normal. The fifth dimension tribulation only appears once every million years, and you just happen to encounter it. At first, I thought it was a coincidence, but gradually, I realized that it might not be a coincidence." Yi Xian's expression was gloomy. "Don't tell me that someone deliberately made me be born at this time, and let me encounter the fifth dimension tribulation." The ninth floor said, "I think that's the case." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Damn, I'm also a little panicked." The ninth floor continued, "You said that your enemies are abnormal, and I agree with that. In your previous life, you could say that you were a prophet, and your current enemies are actually the prophet's enemies. Of course, this is unfair to you. The prophet schemed against you, even though he failed. But you inherited his karma. Do you know what I think? The prophet's karma can be seen, and it is what you are experiencing right now. But this isn't the most frightening thing. The most frightening thing is the invisible karma on your body." Yi Xian was silent. The ninth floor said, "I roughly know who your father is, but your mother is definitely a big problem. For someone like you, your mother can't be an ordinary person. Moreover, didn't you notice a problem? Your mother, Dugu Xian, disappeared after saying that she was looking for someone. I know that you secretly sent people to look for her, but there was no news, right?" Yi Xian nodded. Dugu Xian. In fact, he had been looking for a long time, but there was no news at all. This was very strange. The ninth floor said, "Actually, if the prophet knew that you were so complicated, he wouldn't have chosen you even if you beat him to death. That's not right. You can help him complete some things that he couldn't do himself. No matter what, he is gone. When the time comes, you can find the fifth dimension Tendo and talk to her. She can see further than I can. Perhaps she knows something about Dao Yi that you want to know." Yi Xian was silent. The ninth floor said, "Now that I am following you, I really feel that it is very dangerous. Especially after the woman in the plain dress left. This feeling became even stronger. P.S. Recently, I want to watch some relatively pure movies. Everyone recommends some pure ones. I am serious, brothers." Chapter 1235. Yi Xian was silent. He remembered that the Tendo of the fifth dimension had said that the plain dress woman was suppressing something. Now that she had left, there was no one to suppress it anymore. Karma. The only thing he could think of was karma. Yi Xian looked at himself. Unfortunately, he could not see the so-called karma. No. Yi Xian suddenly frowned. Why not try it? He closed his eyes slowly. At the same time, the sword domain appeared around him. Yi Xian started to observe his surroundings. Soon, He found some faintly discernible threads in the sword domain. At this moment, the ninth floor suddenly said, "This is your karma thread." Yi Xian said, "Can I cut it off?" The ninth floor said, "Try it." Yi Xian suddenly slashed with his sword. Sword cognition. As the sword slashed, a sword ray flashed in the sword domain. However, the karma thread was not affected at all. Yi Xian frowned slightly. The karma thread was not affected by him picking it up. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Senior, what is going on?" The ninth floor said, "You are too weak." Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. The ninth floor said, "Not being affected by all karma. Perhaps only the strength of the sword master at the top of the pagoda can do it." The strength of the sword master at the top of the pagoda. Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't care." After saying that, he looked up at the sky and said softly, "I should think about how to survive first." He knew that the Tao world and the ancient temple would once again descend into the fifth dimension. And this time, if he couldn't withstand it, then all karma and karma would be for naught. Yi Xian disappeared on the spot. This time, he did not intend to sit still and wait for death. He wanted to take the initiative to attack. Yi Xian arrived in front of the fifth dimension barrier. On the other side of the barrier was Wenjiaruo. Wenjiaruo said, "Young Master Yi, someone from the Tao world is contacting the ancient temple." Yi Xian nodded. "I know." Wenjiaruo said, "Young Master Yi, be careful. If you need anything, just inform Li Qinfeng." Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Miss Wen, is the Tao world the limit of our universe?" Wenjiaruo shook his head. "No." Yi Xian asked, "In other words, there is a more powerful world above the Tao world." Wenjiaruo was silent. Yi Xian smiled and said, "You don't know or you can't say?" Wenjiaruo looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, I think what you need to do now is to deal with the Tao world and the ancient temple. As for other matters, put them aside for the time being. Also, young Master Yi, better not leave the fifth dimension. If you appear in the sixth dimension, the ancient temple can easily take you down. As for the Tao world, don't even think about going up. Once you go up, you might never come back down." With that, she turned around and left. In fact, she was not optimistic about Yi Xian at the moment. Not only was Yi Xian targeted by the Tao world, but he was also targeted by the ancient temple. Previously, Yi Xian could win because the Tao world and the ancient temple did not attach enough importance to him. However, it was different now. The Tao world and the ancient temple attached great importance to Yi Xian. He was someone who possessed the Tao scripture. In fact, if it were not for the plain-dressed woman, the sixth dimension might have joined the ancient temple. No one could resist the temptation of the Tao scripture. At that moment, a white-robed monk suddenly appeared not far behind Yi Xian. Yi Xian turned to look at the white-robed monk. "From the ancient temple?" The white-robed monk nodded slightly. "This old monk is the ancient temple's governor elder." "Greetings, young Master Yi." Yi Xian smiled and said, "You want to capture me?" The white-robed monk shook his head. "Although my strength surpasses young Master Yi, I can't capture young Master Yi." Yi Xian had Xiaota, so even a self-release realm expert could not do anything to him. At the very least, it was not a problem for him to protect himself. The governor elder asked again, "Young Master Yi, the two monks of my ancient temple are still in your hands, right?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." The governor elder pressed his palms together. "Thank you, young Master Yi, for not killing them. Since young Master Yi did not kill them, this old monk thinks that we can talk." Yi Xian smiled. "As far as I know, the Tao world's pope went to your ancient temple." The governor elder smiled. "It doesn't matter. They can talk about their matters, and we will talk about ours." Yi Xian glanced at the old monk. "Can we do that?" The governor elder nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian's lips curled up slightly. "Then let's talk." The governor elder pressed his palms together. "Young Master Yi, our ancient temple wants that study room. This is our goal. Moreover, the prophet once promised us that he would give us that study room. Thus, we helped him enter reincarnation and escape the Tao world's pursuit. However, he went back on his words. He never returned." Yi Xian was silent. Perhaps it was not that the prophet went back on his words, but that the prophet could not return. The governor elder continued. Later, we found out that the prophet was erased. As for the study room, it fell into the hands of young Master Yi. Yi Xian suddenly said, I don't understand. Why did you wait until now to snatch the study room? Why didn't you come then? The governor elder shook his head. Young Master Yi, we did not know who the prophet chose. Moreover, he was very smart. He left the study room in the fifth dimension, but he did not leave the key there. Of course, no one knew that the study room was the Tao scripture. We did not know either. In our opinion, the prophet must have carried the Tao scripture with him. After all, it was too precious. Thus, all these years, we have been searching for the prophet's reincarnation, wanting to know who he chose. However, someone is obstructing us. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. If I'm not wrong, it should be the person behind young Master Yi who is obstructing us. Otherwise, we would have gone to look for young Master Yi. Yi Xian was silent. Needless to say, it must be the plain-dressed woman. The governor elder continued. When the prophet left the ancient temple, he not only took his Tao scripture with him, but also a Buddhist scripture from our ancient temple. Whether it's the Buddhist scripture or the Tao scripture, both are very important to our ancient temple. Yi Xian smiled. Master, you know that I'm not the prophet. The governor elder was silent. Obviously, Yi Xian did not want to admit it. However, this was normal. Yi Xian was indeed not the prophet, so why would he admit to the prophet's debt? The governor elder sighed softly. Yi Xian suddenly said, Master, I have an idea. Do you want to hear it? The governor elder looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, let's hear it. Yi Xian nodded. Governor elder, before I say it, I would like to ask you a question. Between the Tao world and me, if you had to choose an opponent, who would you choose? The governor elder looked at Yi Xian. I choose the Tao world. He had chosen the Tao world as his opponent. In fact, the ancient temple did not want to target Yi Xian. The ancient temple was also very afraid of the plain-dressed woman's strength. The ancient temple knew what the plain-dressed woman had done in the sixth dimension, and they also knew that it was the plain-dressed woman who had stopped them from investigating Yi Xian. Moreover, they felt other karma from Yi Xian, which was not the prophet's karma. To put it simply, Yi Xian was not an ordinary person, but a very complicated person. They did not want to get involved in Yi Xian's karma whirlpool. However, they could not refuse the Tao scriptures and Buddhist scriptures. Upon hearing the governor elder's words, Yi Xian smiled. How about this? Let's cooperate. The governor elder looked at Yi Xian. Cooperate? Yi Xian nodded. He opened his palm, and the bookhouse appeared in his hand. Then he used the prism pagoda to open the bookhouse. Soon a voice came from inside. The host's strength is not enough. It cannot be opened. Yi Xian looked at the governor elder, who said softly, He set a restriction. Yi Xian nodded. Can your excellency open it by force? The governor elder looked at the bookhouse and shook his head. I don't dare. Since it was left behind by the prophet, he should have thought of all possibilities. If I force it open, I'm afraid it will not end well. Yi Xian said. I can't open it now. The governor elder said softly. So, that plain-dressed woman did not open the Tao scriptures? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. The governor elder frowned. Then why is she so strong? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. The governor elder's eyes flashed with doubt. You don't know young Master Yi? Yi Xian smiled. I really don't know. Governor elder, let's talk business. The governor elder said in a deep voice. Young Master Yi, tell us what you think. Yi Xian said. How about this? When I can open this bookhouse, I will return the Buddhist scriptures to the ancient temple. As for the Tao scriptures, I can also make a copy and give it to you. The governor elder blinked. You're that good? Yi Xian said with a smile. Of course, I have a condition. First, you have to help me deal with the Tao world. Second, you have to help me and my friends improve their strength. The governor elder frowned. Young Master Yi, your condition. Yi Xian looked at the governor elder. The Tao scriptures. The Tao scriptures. The governor elder said with a smile. Young Master Yi, we can also join forces with the Tao world. What do you think? Yi Xian nodded. You can indeed do that. However, after you join forces with the Tao world, you will still have to fight the Tao world. After all, the Tao world will never give the Tao scriptures to the ancient temple, and the ancient temple will never give them the Tao scriptures. Or do you want to share the Tao scriptures? The governor elder asked. Can't I? Yi Xian said with a smile. I'm willing to share it with you because I haven't reached the self-release realm yet, which is still far from me. However, if the experts of the Tao world get the Tao scriptures and break through first, do you think they will share it with you? Or are you confident that you can get the Tao scriptures first? Of course it's possible. However, if I Yi Xian die, although I can't keep the Tao scriptures, I can choose who I give it to first. What do you think? The governor elder was silent. Yi Xian added, moreover, compared to the Tao world, my strength is much weaker. I can't pose any threat to the ancient temple. Even if I can, it will be in the future. At least in a short time, I can't pose a fatal threat to you. Even if I read the Tao scriptures, I can't reach the self-release realm in an instant, right? However, the Tao world is different. They are all at the self-release realm. Once they read the Tao scriptures, the governor elder looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, I've changed my mind. Yi Xian frowned slightly. What do you mean? The governor elder said, I think that you are a greater threat than the Tao world. At least for now, you make me a little afraid. Yi Xian was speechless. Damn it. Did I fool you for nothing? Chapter 1236. Yi Xian was silent. He had thought that he had successfully fooled them, but he had not expected that they would be wary of him. He had gone overboard this time. In the distance, the old monk said softly, Young Master Yi is not only talented, but his schemes are also top-notch. To be honest, if young Master Yi reaches the self-release realm, I'm afraid our ancient temple will not be able to do anything to young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled. So, Master, you will choose the Tao world, right? The governor elder shook his head. No, as young Master Yi said, if we choose the Tao world, we will eventually have to fight them. Yi Xian looked at the governor elder. So, the governor elder asked softly, Young Master Yi, if we choose you, will you regret it? Yi Xian said with a smile. You have investigated me, haven't you? The governor elder nodded. Yes. Yi Xian asked, Then do you trust me? The governor elder was silent. Yi Xian smiled, and did not say anything else. After a long time, the governor elder put his palms together. Young Master Yi, we trust you. Yi Xian looked at the governor elder. Then, we can talk about how to destroy those experts from the Tao world. The governor elder said, Young Master Yi, this matter is of great importance. We cannot be careless. He paused and added, Since we have already cooperated, shouldn't young Master Yi return the people from our ancient temple? Yi Xian smiled and said, Of course I have to return it. However, Lil Pagoda is still in a coma because of the backlash. Therefore, I can only wait for it to wake up before I can use its power to break the seal. The governor elder looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian hurriedly said, Master, everything I said is true. If you don't believe me, I can swear to heaven. The governor elder shook his head. That won't be necessary. Young Master Yi, I need to go back to the ancient temple. Please wait for my news, young Master Yi. With that, he turned around and disappeared. After the governor elder left, the voice from the 9th floor suddenly rang out. You don't believe him? Yi Xian smiled. What do you think? He doesn't trust you very much either. Yi Xian shook his head. If this Tao scripture could really reach above soul release realm, none of them would believe it. Of course, they would definitely be more afraid of me and the Tao world. If the Tao world obtains the Tao scripture, they might immediately break through to above soul release realm. At that time, they would have no hope of snatching it. But I am different. Even if I open the book room and obtain the Tao scriptures, it is impossible for me to instantly break through above self-release realm. The 9th house said, So they will definitely choose you. Yi Xian shook his head again. They won't choose me either. As I said before, they don't believe in the Tao world, but they won't believe in me either. So if I'm not wrong, they will let us and the Tao world kill each other, while they sit back and reap the benefits. This is the most beneficial choice for them. The ninth house said softly. Just now, you showed them the book room to tell them that you still can't open it. The ancient temple doesn't have the confidence to force it open. So before they find a solution, it is useless for them to obtain the book room. Not only that, but they will also become the target of the Tao world and the sixth dimension. Yixian smiled. Senior is very smart. The ninth house sneered. If I can see through your goal, can't that old monk see through it? Yixian shrugged. So what if he sees through it? The ninth house said. What are your plans? Yixian said softly. The sixth dimension and the Tao world's imperial clans aren't helping, because my strength and the fifth dimension's strength aren't enough. If my strength and the fifth dimension's strength reach a certain level, they will help. Now I need to do two things. First, become stronger. Not only do I need to become stronger, but the fifth dimension also needs to become stronger. Second, find allies. I have the Tao scripture. As long as I have enough strength, many people will be willing to be my ally. The ninth house was silent. As Yixian had said, as long as Yixian wasn't weak, and because of the Tao scripture, many people would be willing to be his ally. Wasn't it the same for him? Yixian turned and left. Soon, Yixian arrived at the fifth dimension's alliance palace. There was only Guanyin inside. Yixian handed Guanyin a slip of paper. Guanyin looked at it and said softly, Painter, Wei Yang Tian Jianzizai. Yixian nodded. Help me find them. Guanyin looked at Yixian. Are they from the fourth dimension? Yixian nodded. Yes. Guanyin wanted to say something but hesitated. Smiling, Yixian said, They are all my friends. Guanyin nodded. I understand. After saying that, she turned and left. Yixian walked to the entrance of the palace and looked outside. He naturally hadn't forgotten about Painter, Wei Yangtian and Jianzizai. Although the three women were still very weak when they parted, of course, that was only in terms of their current level. However, the three women were all stronger than Yixian at that time. He didn't believe that the three women would remain stagnant. However, he was a bit puzzled. Why hadn't he heard any news about the three women along the way? They couldn't have gone to the Tao world, right? In the fourth dimension life forbidden zone. This was one of the three great forbidden zones of the fourth dimension. Very few people set foot here. In the depths of the life forbidden zone, a woman was sitting cross-legged on the ground on top of a mountain. The woman wore a white dress and had long hair that draped over her shoulders. There was a heroic spirit between her eyebrows. If Yixian was here, he would be pleasantly surprised because the woman in front of him was Jianzizai. At this time, a phantom suddenly appeared not far in front of Jianzizai. The phantom was like a shadow, and its true face couldn't be seen clearly. At this time, Jianzizai opened his eyes and looked at the phantom. Restriction Master. The phantom in front of him was the Restriction Master of the Life Forbidden Zone. The Restriction Master nodded slightly. How do you feel now? Jianzizai said. Breakthrough is imminent. The Restriction Master nodded. Then breakthrough in peace. After breaking through, you can leave this place. Jianzizai frowned slightly. What's wrong? The Restriction Master said. He is looking for you, Jianzizai said. What about little brother? Almost everyone she knew was dead, except for Yixian. Therefore, the first person she thought of was Yixian, the Restriction Master. Jianzizai said in a deep voice. Did he cause trouble again? The Restriction Master nodded. His situation isn't particularly good. You can choose to go or not go. It's up to you. Jianzizai looked at the Restriction Master. Back then, you let me in because of him, right? The Restriction Master nodded. Yes. Jianzizai frowned slightly. You know him? The Restriction Master said softly. I don't know him, but I know his father. Yixian's father. Jianzizai blinked. Who is his father? After a moment of silence, the Restriction Master said. A very strong person. Jianzizai asked again. Have you fought before? The Restriction Master nodded. Jianzizai glanced at the Restriction Master. Needless to say, this person had definitely lost, because she could already feel that the other's emotions were a bit off. The Restriction Master said softly. I lost that battle. He didn't kill me. Not only did he not kill me, But he also helped me a lot. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been able to break through to self-release back then. As he said that, he paused and said, a true self-release. A true self-release. Without transcending the great Tao, how could it be called self-release? Jian Zizai suddenly asked, why didn't you leave? With your strength, you should have been able to leave long ago, right? The restriction master shook his head. He asked me to help protect someone here. Jian Zizai was a bit curious. Protect someone? The restriction master nodded. Thinking about it, it's almost time. After a moment of silence, Jian Zizai asked, is he in danger now? The restriction master nodded. His situation isn't particularly good. He has too much karma on him. It's a very troublesome matter. If you are willing to help, you can go after breaking through. If not, I won't force you. When the time comes, I'll personally go. After all, he's the son of an old friend. I have to take care of him. Jian Zizai said, I'll go. As she said that, the corners of her mouth raised slightly. He's my little brother. The restriction master nodded and turned to leave. Jian Zizai slowly closed his eyes and peacefully broke through. Ancient Temple. When the governor elder returned to the ancient temple, the Pope was strolling with the ancient temple's abbot on a Xiao Dao at the foot of the divine mountain. The Pope was still unable to enter the ancient temple. On the Xiao Dao, the two walked slowly. When he saw the governor elder, the Pope put his palms together and said, Abbot, I'll take my leave first. The ancient temple's abbot bowed slightly. Take care, Pope. The Pope nodded and turned to disappear at the end of the horizon. The abbot uttered the name of Buddha, and then looked at the governor elder. The governor elder told him what he had discussed with Yi Xian. After a moment, the governor elder said, Abbot, what do you think? The abbot said softly, Young Master Yi's threat is above the Tao realm. Above the Tao realm. Hearing this, the governor elder fell silent. The ancient temple's abbot slowly walked into the distance. Young Master Yi is a genius. He reached this level without reading the Tao scripture. His achievements are no less than Yi Qingji's. Moreover, he has a Tao protector. Although he has left, he still can't be underestimated. As for what he said about sharing the Tao scripture, he might be telling the truth. However, he's still a threat to our ancient temple. The governor elder asked why. The ancient temple's abbot said softly, If he reaches the self-release realm, what do you think will happen? The governor elder fell silent. If Yi Xian reached the self-release realm, no one in the self-release realm would be his match. The governor elder said solemnly, Then should we join forces with the Tao realm? The ancient temple's abbot shook his head. If we join forces with the Tao realm, both sides will eventually fight. We can join forces with the Tao realm in the open, and Yi Xian in the dark. We can let them exhaust each other. The governor elder shook his head. The Tao realm and Yi Xian are not stupid. The ancient temple's abbot smiled kindly. Whoever is anxious will lose. Our ancient temple is not anxious, and neither is young Master Yi. However, the Tao realm is anxious. Do you understand? The governor elder nodded. I understand. At this moment, a monk suddenly appeared in front of the ancient temple's abbot. The monk bowed slightly and said, I found out the origin of that plain-dressed woman. P.S. Please vote. To be human, one must have a dream. Chapter 1237. The Plain-Dressed Woman. In fact, the ancient temple was most afraid of one person, and that was Yi Xian's Tao protector, the plain-dressed woman. The ancient temple was very afraid of this mysterious plain-dressed woman. It was also because of this that the ancient temple did not dare to go all out against Yi Xian. That woman had almost destroyed the sixth dimension with a single slash. The ancient temple's abbot nodded. Speak, the monk said solemnly. This woman is not from the fifth dimension, nor is she from the fourth dimension. She might be from the third dimension. The third dimension. Hearing this, the ancient temple's abbot frowned, and the beads in his hand stopped spinning. The governor elder also frowned. The third dimension? The monk nodded. From various signs, she should be a person from the third dimension. However, the current third dimension is untraceable. The governor elder was confused. What do you mean? The monk said solemnly. The third dimension seems to have disappeared into thin air. It should be hidden by someone. Moreover, when going to the third dimension. Saying so, he paused before continuing. It is very dangerous. There is a powerful sword chi guarding there. No one dares to approach. The governor elder said solemnly. Even with your strength you can't? The monk nodded. I can't. It is very dangerous. After thinking for a while, the governor elder looked at the ancient temple's abbot. The ancient temple's abbot said softly. The third dimension, this is interesting. The governor elder said solemnly. Could that woman's strength have reached self-release or above? The ancient temple's abbot smiled and said. Anything is possible. The governor elder's expression sank. If the other party has reached self-release or above, the ancient temple's abbot suddenly said. No matter, since she did not help Yi Xian clear his opponents, there are only two possibilities. First, she is afraid of something, and second, she is being held back by something. If we can obtain that Tao scripture, along with our temple's Buddhist scriptures, our ancient temple can break through the limit and head to the realm of Pure Land. The realm of Pure Land, the entire ancient temple's goal. The governor elder and the monk clasped their hands together and chanted Buddhist names. The abbot of the ancient temple suddenly said, Governor, please make arrangements for the ascetic monks who are cultivating outside to return. This matter should come to an end. After that he walked up the mountain. The governor elder bowed slightly and left with the monk. Not long after, a bell rang above the ancient temple. In the five-dimensional universe, inside the room, Yi Xian took out the bookstore. The bookstore was just a small room. From the outside there was nothing special about it. At this moment, Big Sister appeared in the room. Big Sister looked at the study room and said softly, Sir should have left it for himself, what a pity. She glanced at Yi Xian and didn't say anything else. Yi Xian said, Eldest sister has been in contact with Sir for the longest time. Did he say anything before he disappeared? After a moment of silence, eldest sister said, I've said that we'll meet again if fate wills it. Fate brought us together again. Yi Xian was speechless. The big sister said softly, If possible, you can go to the Yi family in the Tao world to take a look. Yi Xian nodded. Sure. The big sister said again, Although you are not Sir, you have inherited Sir's karma. I mean, there are good and bad things. Sir's origin is not simple, especially the Yi family's ancestor. Yi Xian shook his head. If I am not Yi Qingyu, the Yi family's ancestor will kill me? The big sister said. Not necessarily, because most people don't know that you are not Sir. Yi Xian was silent. Indeed, it could be seen. There were really not many people who could break his karma. So far, only the fifth dimension Tendo could be seen with the naked eye. Yi Xian asked again. Are there any descendants of the Yi family? The big sister nodded. Yes. When Sir broke through, he already felt that things were not good. So he let some of his family members leave quietly. However, he underestimated his ability because he broke through too quickly. He couldn't suppress it. Yi Xian shook his head with a smile. What a freak. The big sister looked at Yi Xian. One more thing. Your current cultivation level is a very big disadvantage. You must reach half-step separation realm as soon as possible. If you can reach half-step separation realm, the backlash of regulations should be much, much lower. Yi Xian nodded. I know. As the big sister said, his biggest disadvantage now was his own cultivation level. His cultivation level was really too low. Shattering void tear. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground, his eyes slowly closed. Yi Xian took out an alchemical pill. This was the origin return pill that Guan Yin had given him, used to break through to origin return breaking realm. However, he had not swallowed this alchemical pill before, because he had just broken through to the shattering void tier not long ago. But now, he did not have that much time to wait. Yi Xian directly swallowed the alchemical pill, and very soon, a pure energy spread out from his body. In an instant, a powerful aura overflowed from his body. Gradually, the aura around Yi Xian became stronger and stronger. Tao World. On this day, a total of 36 self-released tier elites of the Tao World left the Tao World. Their goal was precisely the fifth dimension. In truth, the Divine Palace and the Celestial Pavilion, did not have that many self-released tier elites. The majority of self-released tier elites were lone cultivators, and some other forces that had gathered. The reason why everyone had come was very simple. The fifth dimension had a Tao scripture. For the Tao scripture, all self-released tier elites would go crazy. And the Pope was also very smart, agreeing that once they obtained the Tao scripture, everyone would share it. It was precisely because of this reason that countless self-released tier elites of the Tao world had gathered around the Pope and Jiangyu, demonic path clan. The Pope had brought 36 self-released tier elites to the fifth dimension, and Xiao Dao could be said to have received this news at the first instant. However, she was very helpless, because she could not help at all. The present demonic path clan only had one self-released tier elite, and she really could not do anything. Very helpless. In front of the demonic path palace, Xiao Dao looked at the horizon in the distance, her eyes filled with worry. She knew that the plain-dressed woman had already left, so how could Yi Xian resist these 36 self-released tier elites? Moreover, the ancient temple had joined hands with the Tao world. How could Yi Xian resist? Besides Xiao Dao, Emo Zhong said softly, if we had not provoked that plain-dressed woman back then. As he said this, he smiled bitterly. Why had the demonic path clan declined to such a state? It was because they had provoked that plain-dressed woman. It was fine if they had provoked her, but they had even invited her to the clan, nearly causing the clan to be wiped out. The current demonic path clan could not do anything when facing such matters. At the entrance of the palace, Xiao Dao was silent. In truth, the demonic path clan had already had a good ending. If not for Yi Xian, that plain-dressed woman would have killed everyone in the demonic path clan. When had that plain-dressed woman ever been soft-hearted? Only when facing Yi Xian would she show her benevolent side. At this moment, Xiao Dao suddenly said, I want to go down for a while. Hearing this, Emo Zhong's expression changed and he hurriedly said, Miss, you absolutely cannot do that. Right now, Xiao Dao said softly. If I go down, I can more or less help. After he finished speaking, he had already disappeared. Seeing this, Emo Zhong was shocked and hurriedly chased after her. On the other side, in an abandoned ruin, a woman was slowly walking. This person was Qian Mo. There had once been a super large clan in these ruins. Qian clan. Mortal bloodline. The Qian family's ancestor had once been the first mortal bloodline in the Tao world. At that time, the Qian family had been the #1 clan in the Tao world. Unfortunately, with glory came decline. The descendants of the Qian family were not as good as the last, and gradually declined. In the last period of time, as the youngest clan leader of the Qian family, in order to change the family's situation, she used a secret technique to bring some clansmen to the fifth dimension, wanting to rebuild the family there. However, she did not expect that the fifth dimension Tendo would be so abnormal. At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared behind Qian Mo. The old man respectfully bowed to Qian Mo clan leader. Qian Mo said softly, How many people are left? The old man said in a deep voice, More than 100. However, most of them do not know that they are from the Qian family. Not only that, many of them have their bloodline completely diluted. It can be said that at least 90% of the clansmen can no longer activate the family's bloodline. Qian Mo was silent. The old man sighed softly, feeling sad and happy at the same time. He was sad that the Qian family had completely declined, but he was happy that his young miss had unexpectedly broken through the bloodline shackles. It could be said that his young miss was the first person in the Qian family after the ancestor. As if thinking of something, the old man hurriedly said, Young miss, the Pope and the others have brought 36 self-release realm experts to the fifth dimension. Hearing this, Qian Mo frowned slightly. 36? The old man nodded. 36. Moreover, the Pope and Immortal Pavilion Master have personally gone. It seems that they want to kill that Yi Xian. Qian Mo was silent. The old man was about to speak when Qian Mo suddenly said, I will make a trip to the fifth dimension. You stay here and slowly summon the clansmen. After saying this, she disappeared on the spot. In the sixth dimension, when Jaroa came to the pavilion where the sixth dimension Tendo lived, Wenjaroa said in a deep voice. The 36th self-release realm has reached the 6th dimension. The 6th dimension, Tendo said softly. Their target is Yixian? Wenjaroa nodded. Yes. The 6th dimension, Tendo was silent. Wenjaroa said again. The ancient temple has also moved. The 6th dimension, Tendo looked at Wenjaroa. How many people? Wenjaroa said in a deep voice. 9 ascetic monks, all at the upper self-release realm. Moreover, the governor elder is personally leading them. Hearing this, the 6th dimension Tendo suddenly stood up. Wenjaroa looked at the 6th dimension Tendo. What is it? The 6th dimension Tendo said in a deep voice. Something big is going to happen. Wenjaroa was a little puzzled. What do you mean? The 6th dimension Tendo said softly. Have you ever thought about what will happen if that Yixian dies? The plain-dress woman. Wenjaroa immediately thought of the plain-dress woman. If Yixian dies, will the plain-dress woman give up? Definitely not. Wenjaroa said in a deep voice. Something big is really going to happen. Somewhere in the starry sky, Moon Yinyan was slowly roasting the small fish in front of her. Roasting fish in the starry sky, one of a kind. At this moment, a voice sounded in her ear. They are all going to fight him. The corners of Moon Yinyan's mouth raised slightly. Her smile was a little strange. Isn't that good? Chapter 1238. At the foot of the sacred mountain, the Pope and the others gathered. Looking at the ancient temple on the sacred mountain, the Pope chuckled. This ancient temple is really mysterious. Jiangyu nodded. Because their divine sense couldn't reach this ancient temple, before reaching halfway, it was blocked by a mysterious force. Jiangyu was about to speak, when an old monk suddenly appeared in front of him. It was the governor elder. The governor elder clasped his hands together. Your Holiness. The Pope returned the greeting. Governor elder, we should depart. The governor elder smiled. All right. With that, 8 monks dressed in gray robes appeared behind him. Ascetics. All 8 were at the upper self-release realm. Although they couldn't compare to the Pope and the others in terms of quantity, their quality crushed them. Seeing these 8 ascetics, the Pope and Jiangyu's hearts trembled. This ancient temple's strength was stronger than they imagined. At this moment, the Pope and Jiangyu were on guard. In fact, whether it was them or the ancient temple, they all had one question in mind. What would happen after killing Yixian? What would happen after killing Yixian? At that time, who would the study house belong to? This was a question they had no choice but to face. Of course, the prerequisite for this question was to obtain the study house first. The governor elder suddenly said, Let's go. The Pope nodded. To the 5th dimension. Soon the group headed to the 5th dimension. 5th dimension. On this day, the barrier of the 5th dimension suddenly split open, followed by dozens of powerful auras walking out from the crack. It was the Pope and the others. The Pope looked around and didn't find the aura of the 5th dimension Tendo. At this moment, the governor elder suddenly said, This 5th dimension Tendo must be guarded against. The ancient temple was very afraid of the 5th dimension Tendo Moon Yinyan. The Pope smiled. Believe me, she won't dare to come out today. His voice was full of confidence. The governor elder frowned slightly. He realized that the Tao world looked down on the 5th dimension Tendo. At this moment, the Pope suddenly looked down and smiled. Isn't the Tao world lacking in spiritual energy? This world's spiritual energy is quite abundant. Jiangyu said softly. Indeed. But before that, let's get the study room first. The Pope nodded. Of course. As he spoke, he looked down and slowly raised his right hand. In the next moment, a powerful aura swept down from the starry sky. Within that powerful aura, a giant hand that was thousands of feet long quietly condensed. The starry sky trembled. If that palm landed, the entire shaman city underneath would be reduced to nothingness. Right at this moment, a sword howl resounded abruptly from below. In the next moment, a strand of light slashed against the enormous palm. The sword light shattered, but the giant hand was still there. At this moment, several more sword lights slashed down. Boom! The giant hand shattered. Below him stood a woman wielding a sword. It was Agio. Audiobook gulped down a mouthful of wine and looked at the Pope and the others. When she saw so many people, she immediately turned and left. There were too many people. I can't beat him. Soon, Audiobook arrived at Yi Xian's room. She broke the door and entered. Yi Xian was still sitting cross-legged in the room. The aura on his body grew stronger and stronger, and he was about to break through. Audiobook shook her head. You chose a good time. After saying this, she turned and left. Audiobook had just walked out of the room when a powerful aura suddenly spread out from inside the room. Audiobook turned and saw Yi Xian walk out of the room. Audiobook raised her eyebrows slightly. Returning element-shattering realm? Yi Xian nodded. Audiobook sized up Yi Xian then frowned. His aura is unstable. Yi Xian nodded. I know. He had just broken through to the shattering void tier not long ago. And now he broke through to returning element-shattering realm. This was a little too fast. Thus, there were some hidden dangers. However, at this moment he couldn't care so much. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the starry sky and asked softly, Are they all here? Audiobook nodded. About 50 people. And the lowest is self-release tier. Yi Xian blinked. Shall we surrender? Audiobook took a sip of wine then said, I think it's fine. Yi Xian. In a short while Yi Xian, Audiobook, and the others arrived in the starry sky. The Pope sized up Yi Xian, smiled and said, Not bad indeed. Yi Xian looked at the Pope, smiled and said, It seems that you are the Pope of the Tao realm. The Pope nodded. Yes. Should I address you as Yi Qingji or Yi Xian? Yi Xian glanced at the people behind the Pope, and finally looked at the Governor Elder. The Governor Elder put his palms together. Young Master Yi, my ancient temple still feels that you are the greatest threat. You are an uncertain factor, and my ancient temple dares not take risks with uncertain factors. Sharing the Tao scripture, it had to be said that the ancient temple was a little tempted, but they were afraid that Yi Xian would rise. Once this kind of genius freak rose, it was not something that the ancient temple could control. To put it simply, the ancient temple was confident in dealing with the Tao realm, but it did not have the information to deal with Yi Xian, who would rise in the future. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the book appeared in his hand. As they looked at the book in Yi Xian's hand, the eyes of all the self-release realm experts instantly burned. They were all at the self-release realm, and it could be said that there were very few things that could move them. The Tao scripture. The Pope stared at Yi Xian and smiled. What, you want to hand it over yourself? Yi Xian fell silent. He had thought of handing over the book and letting them kill each other first. However, he did not do that, because if he could think of it, they could think of it as well. In other words, even if he handed over the book, they would join forces to deal with him first. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the starry sky. This time, they really did not give him a chance. 50 self-release realm experts. But the current fifth dimension did not have a single self-release realm expert. They really thought too highly of Yi Xian. At this time, the Pope suddenly said, If you willingly hand it over, I can give you and the people by your side a quick death. Many times, a quick death is also a kind of fortune. Yi Xian looked at the Pope. Before I die, I want to experience the strength of a self-release realm expert. I wonder if your holiness can give me this chance? The Pope shook his head. I will not give you any chance. As he spoke, he looked at the Governor Elder. Attack together and kill this person first. The Governor Elder nodded. Yes. One-on-one. The Pope did not fear Yi Xian, but he did not look down on Yi Xian, and did not want to fail miserably. In a one-on-one battle with Yi Xian, winning was normal, and everyone would feel that it was a matter of course. But losing was extremely abnormal. Not only would his reputation be ruined, but he might even die. The predecessor of this person was the Yi Qingji of the past. After obtaining the Governor Elder's approval, the Pope looked down at Yi Xian. Attack! Leave no one alive. When they heard the cult master, the 30-plus self-release realm experts charged down towards the ground. Down below, Guan Yin and the others were pale. This time, she had not calculated that the Tao world and the ancient temple would use all their forces to attack the fifth dimension. They were prepared to not give the fifth dimension any chance. How could they fight? The gap between them was just too big. Guan Yin looked at the distant Yi Xian. Right now, all her hopes were on Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at the dozens of people charging down from the horizon. He was very clear that with his current strength, he could not defeat them. Although Yi Xian could fight across realms, the other side had far too many people. But he had no choice but to fight. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the World Prism Pagoda appeared in his hand. His expression gradually became fierce. Leave the formation. Bang! The starry sky beneath Yi Xian's feet violently trembled. Then a massive starry sky array appeared all around him. Yi Xian opened his left hand, and a sword appeared in it. The Tendo sword. This was the sword that Moon Yinyan had given him. He had never used it before, so he did not know the use of this sword. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. He suddenly pointed the sword upwards. In an instant, the entire world began to violently tremble. Soon, countless mysterious energies began to gather from the world like a tide. No, not from the world, but from the entire fifth dimension. This powerful energy was actually able to forcibly block the self-release realm experts that were charging down. Seeing this scene, everyone was dumbfounded. Even Yi Xian had not expected that his sword would be so formidable. From all around, endless energy gathered towards Yi Xian, adding on the power of the array itself. At this moment, Yi Xian felt that he could destroy the universe. Yi Xian quietly put away the World Prism Pagoda. He suddenly realized that he could rely on this array and this sword to fight against his opponents. As for risking his life, he could wait a little longer. Yi Xian raised his head and looked at the Pope and the others. The Pope softly said, "External strength is still an illusion in the end." After saying this, he suddenly punched out. With this punch, a black fist imprint swept out. Wherever the fist imprint passed, space became deathly still. This punch had already injured the source of the fifth dimension. Below, Yi Xian slashed out with his sword. A snow-white sword light tore through the air. Under the gazes of everyone, Yi Xian's sword directly slashed at the fist imprint. Bang! The sword light shattered. The fist imprint only became a little more illusory, before continuing towards Yi Xian. At this time, Yi Xian slashed out with his sword again. Hiss! A sword light soared into the sky, and directly slashed at the fist imprint. Bang! This time, the fist imprint was unable to withstand Yi Xian's sword chi, and exploded together with Yi Xian's sword chi. In the sky, the Pope looked at Yi Xian with an expressionless face. Attack together. Break the array and destroy the source of this world. After saying this, he seemed to have thought of something, and looked at the Governor Elder of the ancient temple. Sir, attack together. The Governor Elder hesitated for a moment and said, "There's someone behind Yi Xian. We have to be on guard." They had investigated Yi Xian. There were some mysterious people behind Yi Xian. Although they didn't know who they were or where they came from, they didn't dare to underestimate them. Someone. A wisp of disdain appeared on the corners of the Pope's mouth. Today, whoever protects him will die. As he spoke, he directly charged down with all the experts. On the other side, Sita suddenly looked at Wine. "Don't you have a life-saving trump card?" Wine nodded. Sita frowned slightly. "Then why don't you use it?" Wine fell silent for a moment, and then she took out a wooden sword. This was left behind by the ancestor of the banished immortal island. Sita said, "Quickly use it. Otherwise, that little fellow will die." Ajo didn't move. Sita looked at Wine, and she said in a low voice, "I forgot how to use it." Sita was speechless. P.S. Don't tell me you forgot how to vote. Chapter 1239. He had forgotten how to use it. Sita looked at Agio. "You're joking, right?" Agio shook her head. "I'm serious." Situ. At this moment in the distance, dozens of self-release realm experts had arrived above Yi Xian. Yi Xian had a savage look on his face as the prison pagoda appeared between his brows. In the next moment, a blood-red prisoner character appeared above the heads of the four self-release realm experts at the front. Boom, 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 boom. Four blood-red pillars of light enveloped the four of them, causing them to be unable to move. Seeing this scene, their expressions changed drastically. They tried to resist, but at this moment, The four of them exploded into nothingness. Instant kill. The other self-release realm experts were shocked when they witnessed this scene. What was that? In the sky, the Pope stared at Yi Xian. It wasn't just the Pope. Everyone was staring at Yi Xian. Under everyone's gazes, Yi Xian's hair was turning white at a visible rate. In just a few breaths of time, his hair had turned completely white like snowflakes. Backlash. The Pope suddenly smiled. The price is lifespan. Clearly, he could see that Yi Xian's lifespan was flowing away. However, the remaining self-release realm experts didn't dare to continue attacking. Just now, Yi Xian had instantly killed 4 self-release realm experts. Although they knew that Yi Xian was suffering from backlash, no one wanted to be the first to attack. The first to attack might be the first to die. At this moment, the Pope looked at Jiang Yu, and Jiang Yu nodded. At this moment, the two of them had to attack. Otherwise, no one would attack. The Pope and Jiang Yu suddenly vanished on the spot, and 2 powerful forces swept towards Yi Xian. In the distance, Sita suddenly looked at Agio. You still haven't finished your research? Agio shook her head. I have indeed forgotten. Sita shook her head. You are invincible. After saying this, she transformed into a blade light, and slashed towards the sky. She knew that if she didn't act, Yi Xian would definitely die. Yi Xian no longer had the ability to activate the Prism Pagoda again. It wasn't just Situ who attacked with him, but also Arrow, and Lancio and the others. However, as soon as Situ and the others came into contact with the 2 Pope, they immediately dispersed. They were no match for the 2 Pope. The difference between their cultivation levels was too great. Very quickly, the Pope appeared directly above Yi Xian's head, and looked down at Yi Xian, who was holding the World Prison Pagoda. The corners of the Pope's mouth curled into a sinister smile, and he fiercely slammed his palm down. With a wave of his palm, the space where Yi Xian stood directly turned illusory. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the sword sect. He did not use the World Prison Pagoda again, because he could not endure a second backlash from the World Prison Pagoda. Moreover, even if he had the World Prison Pagoda, he was not confident that he could kill the Pope. The other party's strength was much stronger than he had expected. Yi Xian took a step forward, and his sword domain appeared all around him. This time, he did not simply use his sword domain, but borrowed the power of his sword sense and the Tendo sword. With the support of his sword sense and the Tendo sword, his sword domain was powerful enough. Very quickly, the power of the Pope's punch entered Yi Xian's sword domain. In an instant, Yi Xian's face turned pale, and he hurriedly stabbed out with his sword. Sword is thought. Guardian thought. As his sword stabbed out, the Pope's power was forced to a stop, and gradually, the power began to dissipate. As for Yi Xian, his expression became increasingly unsightly. In the air, the Pope looked at Yi Xian, the killing intent in his eyes thickening. Yi Xian's battle prowess was somewhat unexpected, and it made him feel somewhat apprehensive. He was a little fearful. At the very least, no one in the Dao world. On the other side, the Governor Elder was also staring at Yi Xian. At this moment, he felt that the ancient temple's choice was the correct one. At this moment, he felt that the ancient temple had made the right choice. If they chose Yi Xian, then once Yi Xian rose up in the future, the 2 ancient temples wouldn't be able to suppress him. Right now, Yi Xian was only in the returning essence shattering realm, but he could already fight against the release realm. This was just too exaggerated. This kind of person should either not be enemies with him, or be killed, so that he would never rise again. The Governor Elder suddenly said, Pope, I will lend you a hand. The Pope smiled, very good. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned to look at Yi Xian, and then he charged towards Yi Xian. The Governor Elder was even faster. He transformed into a golden ray of light that shot out explosively, and he instantly entered Yi Xian's sword domain. As soon as they entered Yi Xian's sword domain, a mouthful of blood essence instantly sprayed from Yi Xian's mouth, and he hurriedly withdrew his sword domain. Because his sword domain couldn't endure the strength of the Pope and the Governor Elder any longer. Meanwhile, the Pope and the Governor Elder were only over 30 m away from Yi Xian, and their powerful forces were like a storm that enveloped Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly raised his hands. I surrender. He surrendered. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone here was stunned. The Pope and the Governor Elder were slightly stunned as well. He's going to surrender? What the hell? Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly withdrew the book. Yi Xian gazed at the Pope and the Governor Elder in the sky, wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth, and then said, I surrender. Take this. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly made a tossing motion with his right hand, and the book flew into the air. At this moment, the gazes of everyone here shot towards the book. The Pope instinctively wanted to take it, but a powerful strand of divine sense had locked onto him. It was the Governor Elder. Besides that, the self-release realm experts who'd come with him from the Tao world were looking at him as well, and their gazes were slightly off. The Tao scripture. The Pope didn't dare to move. If he tried to take it by force now, then he would definitely be attacked by everyone. The Pope seemed to have thought of something, and he gazed at Yi Xian while his eyes narrowed slightly. You're trying to divert our attention. All of them gazed at Yi Xian when they heard this. Obviously, Yi Xian wanted to divert their attention. Yi Xian wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth again, and then he said, Everyone, don't all of you want this book? Come, I'll give it to all of you right now. The Pope gazed at Yi Xian and laughed coldly. Everyone, I think that it's better for us to join forces and kill him first. Otherwise, with his natural talent, he'll definitely give all of you a huge headache once he attains the self-release realm in the future. As he spoke, he gazed at the Governor Elder. What do you think? The Governor Elder looked at Yi Xian and nodded. All right. However, who will take care of the book for now? That was a problem. The Pope fell silent. Give it to the ancient temple for safekeeping? He naturally wouldn't do that. At the same time, the ancient temple wouldn't agree to give it to him as well. This was where Yi Xian was smart, open schemes. Of course, there was another reason, and it was that the attraction of the book was sufficiently great. Both the Pope and the ancient temple were unable to refuse it. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, Everyone, I have an idea. All of them gazed at Yi Xian, and then the Pope suddenly said, Don't even think about it. As he spoke, he was about to make a move. At this time, Yi Xian's palm suddenly opened. The World Prism Pagoda appeared in his hand. He looked at the Pope and the others, smiling. Everyone, I, Yi Xian, am invincible under self-release realm. Above self-release realm, I will trade 1 for 1. Whoever doesn't agree, come. 1 for 1. The Pope stared at Yi Xian. When the book was handed over, he didn't dare to risk his life anymore. At least, he didn't dare to risk his life alone. If Yi Xian really risked his life against him, if he was injured, then he would have no fate with the Tao scripture. The Governor Elder didn't dare to make the first move, because he had the same thought as the Pope. Right now, both sides were afraid that Yi Xian would risk his life against them. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly said, Everyone, you want to kill me because you're afraid that I will rise in the future and become a threat to you. But that is under the premise that I have the Tao scripture. But now I have already handed over the Tao scripture. Everyone, once you obtain the Tao scripture and comprehend its mysteries, you will be above self-release realm. Let me ask you, at that time, will you still be afraid of me? Hearing this, everyone pondered. That's right. If they were above self-release realm, would they still be afraid of Yi Xian? In the square, everyone looked at the book not far away. The Pope stared at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, you want us to fight amongst ourselves? Yi Xian smiled. Your Holiness, let me ask you, if I didn't have me, Yi Xian, would you hand over this item to the ancient temple? The Pope looked at Yi Xian, not saying anything, but his eyes were filled with killing intent. Yi Xian looked at the Governor Elder and smiled. Governor Elder, you said that I am a greater threat, but that is only if I have the Tao scripture. Without it, I won't be able to pose any threat to the ancient temple for at least 10 years, right? The Governor Elder was silent. Indeed, without the Tao scripture, no matter how monstrous Yi Xian was, he wouldn't be able to reach the peak of the ancient temple in a short period of time. Yi Xian continued. The 5th dimension will soon have a 5th dimension tribulation, and I still have to face it. What do you think? The governor elder looked at Yi Xian. But if you die, we will be more at ease. Yi Xian smiled. Of course. But Governor Elder, don't forget. Once the Dao Realm Pope obtains the Dao Scripture, the situation will be different. Do you know about the plain dress woman? Do you know why she is so strong? Because she obtained a few lines of the Dao Scripture from Yi Qingji. So she became so strong. She killed a 6-dimensional self-release realm expert by herself. Saying this, he looked at the people in the sky. To be able to reach self-release, you are certainly monstrous among monstrous geniuses, geniuses among geniuses. I believe that if you can obtain the Dao Scripture, even if it is just one page, with your talent and knowledge, you will definitely be able to surpass self-release and reach above it. Everyone was silent. At this moment, they finally knew why the plain dress woman was so strong. So she had seen the Dao Scripture before. Everyone looked at the Dao Scripture again. Some people's eyes burning with undisguised passion. At this moment, the Pope suddenly said angrily, Yi Xian, you are misleading us with your lies. You want us to kill each other, so you can reap the benefits. Yi Xian shook his head. Your Excellency Pope, I only want to live, so I will hand over the Dao Scripture. Saying this, he looked at the people in the sky. Even if you can't beat them, you can't surrender? The Pope said in a low voice, Everyone, you must not believe Yi Xian, this person. At this moment, the book in the sky suddenly turned into a ray of white light and flew towards the Pope. Seeing this, Yi Xian hurriedly said, Wow, Pope, you actually attacked. At this moment, the surrounding self-release realm experts directly charged towards the Pope. Even Jiang Yu was no exception. Chapter 1240. The study was naturally Yi Xian's idea. He knew very well that if he didn't hand over the study, then not only would he die, everyone around him would die as well. He couldn't rely on others to save him every single time. He could only rely on himself. And he could only rely on himself. If he couldn't win, then he would play dirty. When the study flew towards the Pope, the experts present couldn't maintain their composure, and they practically didn't hesitate to charge towards the Pope. At this moment, Yi Xian wasn't in their minds. There was only a single thought in their minds, and that was to prevent the Pope from obtaining the study. The experts from the ancient temple, and the others charged over as well. The study absolutely couldn't fall into the Pope's hands. Otherwise, it would be extraordinarily difficult to seize the ancient temple back. At the center of the crowd, the Pope was greatly alarmed when he saw the study charge towards him, and his first thought was that something bad was about to happen. When he saw everyone charging towards him, he practically didn't hesitate to grab the study, turn around and flee. Flee back to the Bloodshed God Palace. This was what he was thinking right now, because the Bloodshed God Palace was his territory, and he would be safe there. The Pope's movements were very swift. After seizing the study, he turned around and fled very quickly. In the blink of an eye, he'd left the 5th dimension. When they saw this, the experts from the ancient temple and the others couldn't be bothered about anything else and chased after him. As for Jiang Yu and the others, they chased after him as well. In next to no time, all the self-release realm experts in the sky above the 5th dimension had vanished. Everyone instantly heaved sighs of relief when they saw this scene. Meanwhile, Guan Yin walked over to Yi Xian's side and asked softly, Are you really going to hand it over? Yi Xian smiled. Of course. Guan Yin wanted to say something but hesitated, but she didn't say anything in the end. The study was very important, but everyone's lives were even more important. Yi Xian suddenly said, I'm going to heal my injuries. With that, he turned around and left. Guan Yin glanced at Yi Xian's departing figure and didn't say anything. It didn't take long for the crowd to disperse. When Yi Xian returned to his room, a woman suddenly appeared before him. It was Qian Mo. Qian Mo looked at Yi Xian. Did you really hand it over? Yi Xian smiled and said, Could it be fake? Qian Mo spoke in a low voice. Do you know what that scripture means? Yi Xian asked. Is it more important than your life? Qian Mo fell silent. The Tao scriptures were indeed important, but were they more important than one's life? Qianemo looked at Yi Xian. Are you really willing? Yi Xian shook his head. So what if I'm unwilling? Qianemo said solemnly. Why didn't you ask the fifth dimension Tendo to help? Yi Xian whispered. Does she owe me? No, she doesn't owe me, Yi Xian. This time, after he handed over the bookstore, he suddenly felt his entire body relax. It was not because he was temporarily safe. It was the heart. His heart relaxed. Persistence. Previously, he had the bookstore and felt that it was his. Therefore he, Yi Xian, would rather die in battle than hand it over. However, he suddenly realized, why didn't he hand it over? Could it be that he really had to rely on this bookstore to reach above self-release? Mu Ninian had once said that the Tao scripture in the bookstore was a path given by others. She disdained walking the path given by others. She wanted to carve out her own path. As for him, Yi Xian looked at the executing heaven sword in his hand. He had to carve out a path that belonged to him. There was no plain-dressed woman. There was no azure-robed man. There was no prophet. He was who he was. When he no longer relied on anyone, that was the time to recognize himself. Free heart. Mu Ninian had once said that above sword sense was the free heart. What was free heart? It meant that there were no restrictions. People lived in one's life. Many times they were imprisoned by others, but even more often, they were imprisoned by themselves. They bound their own hearts. As for him, he was bound by others and also by himself. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Soon, he was like an old monk in meditation. Seeing this scene, Qianemo gave him a deep look. This guy was about to break through. And it was a breakthrough in the sword Tao. Was he so abnormal? He wanted to break through just by handing over something? Qianemo shook her head. A swordsman was the most unpredictable person. Qianemo quietly retreated. Outside the door was Guanyin. Qianemo looked at Guanyin. You followed him for that Tao scripture. Guanyin looked at Qianemo. For survival. Qianemo said plainly. Without him, the fifth dimension is safer. Guanyin shook his head. Fifth dimension tribulation. Qianemo was silent. Guanyin said again. Miss Qianemo followed him because of that Tao scripture? Qianemo said. Yes. But he is gone now. After saying that, she turned and left. At this time, Guanyin suddenly said. Miss Qianemo, do you really think that the bookstore is in the hands of the Pope? Qianemo turned and looked at Guanyin. After a while, she seemed to have thought of something and shook her head with a smile. Guanyin looked at Yi Xian's room in silence. When she saw the bookstore fly towards the Pope, she knew that things were not so simple. In fact, everyone had overlooked one point. The bookstore had already recognized Yi Xian as its master. Sixth dimension. When Jaro rushed to the sixth dimension Tendo's pavilion, she looked at the sixth dimension Tendo. He handed over the bookstore. The sixth dimension Tendo was silent. When Jarua said in a deep voice, the plain-dressed woman did not appear. The fifth dimension Tendo also did not make a move. The sixth dimension Tendo looked at Wenjarua. What do you want to say? Wenjarua said softly, I think that plain-dressed woman will not appear. The sixth dimension Tendo frowned. You have thoughts about that Tao scripture? Wenjarua nodded. Yes. The sixth dimension Tendo sighed. Greed often kills people. Jarua, believe me, that Tao scripture is a hot potato. Whoever takes it will die. When Jarua was silent, the sixth dimension Tendo said again. The Pope has obtained the Tao scripture. He will not have a good ending. Let's not talk about the plain-dressed woman and the others. That prophet is not a good person. He must have thought of any possibility for the things he left behind. You watch carefully. According to my guess, the bookstore will eventually return to Yi Xian's hands. When Jarua frowned, how is it possible? The sixth dimension Tendo said softly. Why is it not possible? When Jarua was silent, the sixth dimension Tendo looked at When Jarua. This matter is very complicated. Sixth dimension should maintain the status quo. As long as we have no other thoughts about the bookstore, the Tao world will not provoke us. The ancient temple will not. Similarly, Yi Xian will not either. If we give up a bookstore, we will get more. When Jarua nodded slightly, understood. The sixth dimension Tendo said again. The Tao world will be chaotic. As she said this, She looked up with a trace of worry in her eyes. The Tao scripture reappeared in the world. It was not a good thing. The Tao world. The Pope brought the bookstore with him and sprinted straight for the God Palace. In fact, his mind was very, very clear at this moment. He knew that the bookstore flying towards him was definitely Yi Xian's doing. Yi Xian wanted him to become the target of everyone. However, he had no way to refuse. It should be said that his heart wanted to refuse, but his body couldn't. Only heaven knew how many years he had been in self-release extreme realm. This Tao scripture was his hope to break through, and he really didn't want to give it up. Therefore, even though he knew that this was Yi Xian's scheme, he had no choice but to fall for it. Because of Yi Xian's conspiracy, he had no idea. There was no way to refuse. Right now, he needed to return to the Bloodshed God Palace. Behind him were dozens of self-release realm experts. Somewhere in the starry sky, Moon Yinyan watched the madly fleeing Pope. There was still a roasted fish in her hand, but half of it had already been eaten. At this moment, a voice rang in Moon Yinyan's ears. He handed over the study room. Moon Yinyan smiled and said, "It's a good thing." The voice was somewhat puzzled. "What do you mean?" Moon Yinyan indifferently said, "He previously wanted to use the study room to resist the fifth dimension tribulation. This in itself was a foolish idea." The voice asked, "Is the fifth dimension tribulation very frightening?" Moon Yinyan rolled her eyes. "What do you think?" The voice said, "But the fifth dimension has experienced so many fifth dimension tribulations, yet there are still so many living beings in the fifth dimension." Moon Yinyan pointed at herself. "Please, that's because of me." The voice. Moon Yinyan softly sighed. "You see, I'm so powerful, but I still fell ill from blocking the fifth dimension tribulation. What about him? If he wants to use the study room to resist the fifth dimension tribulation, that idea will kill him. There are 4 kinds of tribulations in this world. The first is the heavenly tribulation, the second is the heart tribulation, and the third is the human tribulation. This fifth dimension tribulation is both the heavenly tribulation and the heart tribulation. After the heart tribulation, there is still the human tribulation. If he wants to use the study room to resist it, it is unrealistic." The voice asked, "If there isn't, then what about the study room?" Moon Yinyan smiled. "Actually, a person's own body is the greatest wealth. Unfortunately, many people don't dig out their own potential. They all want to rely on external objects. This is a bit like putting the cart before the horse." As she spoke, she looked at the distant horizon and softly said, "Humans are blessed by the heavens, especially when it comes to cultivation. They have an advantage over many other living beings. Of course, humans are also especially greedy, just like this Pope." The voice asked, "What do you mean?" Moon Yinyan smiled. "The people of the Tao world are very stupid. They think that after reaching the self-release realm, there is no path. They need Tao scriptures to continue advancing. Little do they know that this kind of thinking is very stupid. It is like a person walking in front of a huge mountain and finding that there is no path. Then, they will stop walking and feel that there must be a path for them to walk. This kind of thinking is very stupid, because it is the same as trapping themselves. Since there is no path in front of them, why not create a path for themselves? Their thoughts are all trapped by themselves." As she spoke, she shook her head. Since Yi Xian can hand over the study room, it proves that he has already walked out of this predicament. The voice asked again, "What do you plan to do next?" Moon Yinyan shook her head. "He will walk the next path by himself." With that, she turned and left. The voice asked, "You were prepared to make a move before, right?" Moon Yinyan smiled. "The current him doesn't need my help." "That's not right. There is still a problem that needs to be solved for him." With that, she turned and arrived in front of the Tao world's cosmic barrier. What was the world above the Tao world? No one knew. Currently, only the plain dress woman had broken this cosmic barrier. Moon Yinyan looked at the cosmic barrier in front of her and smiled. "My name is Moon Yinyan. Before I die, you are not allowed to come over, okay?" After a moment of silence, a voice sounded from the depths of the cosmic barrier. "You think too highly of yourself." Moon Yinyan shook her head and smiled. Suddenly, she opened her palm and a sword appeared in it. She wanted to draw her sword, but soon shook her head. "You are not worthy of my sword." With that, she gently drew a line with her fingers, and the cosmic barrier in front of her split open. A moment later she rushed in. A quarter of an hour later, Moon Yin walked out, and in her hands there were 2 bloody heads. However, her face had turned a little pale. Moon Yin threw the 2 bloody heads aside, and shook her head. "Really, you look down on me so much. Besides that plain-dressed woman, who do you think I am afraid of? Humph. P.S. If everyone still has a ticket, you know what I mean." Chapter 1241. Behind Moon Yin, the cosmos barrier had already recovered. Moon Yin coughed twice. At this moment a voice rang out beside her. "Your injury has worsened." Moon Yin laughed. "I won't die." After she finished speaking, she looked at the distant starry sky and softly said, 3 years of the 5th dimension tribulation. 3 years should be enough for him." The God Palace. After the Pope returned to the Bloodshed God Palace, all the experts of the Bloodshed God Palace were dispatched. Tao Scriptures. After learning that the Pope had obtained the Taoist scripture, the entire Bloodshed God Palace was in an uproar. This was the #1 divine item in the Tao world. However, they also knew that it wasn't an easy task to protect this godly item. The Pope had just returned to the Bloodshed God Palace, when the ancient temple's governor elder and the others rushed over. Apart from them, there were also several dozen self-release realm experts. Some itinerant self-release realm experts from the Tao world also rushed over after hearing the news. For a time, more than 90% of the Tao world's self-release realm experts had gathered around the Bloodshed God Palace. Within the Bloodshed God Palace, the Pope's face was extremely unsightly. At this moment he became much more clear-headed. How could the Bloodshed God Palace defend against these self-release realm experts? Could it be that he had to hand over the Tao scripture that he had obtained? He was definitely not reconciled to this. At this time, the governor elder suddenly said, "Pope, you better hand over the item." The Pope looked at the governor elder and smiled. "Then who should I hand it over to?" The governor elder shook his head. "Don't try to sow discord, Pope. Before you hand it over, I believe that there will be no internal strife." The Pope suddenly looked at Jiang Yu and the others. "Everyone, I said before that after obtaining the Tao scripture, I would share it with all of you. I still have that thought." Jiang Yu looked at the Pope, saying nothing. The Pope continued, "Everyone should understand one thing, and that is none of us can possess this Tao scripture alone. Only by working together can we protect this Tao scripture. In other words, we have to be united." Jiang Yu suddenly said, "Pope, how do you want us to believe you?" After a moment of silence, the Pope said, "I can swear to the heavens that if I go back on my promise, then let me die a horrible death." Jiang Yu hesitated for a moment, and then he turned around to look at the crowd behind him. "What do you think?" Everyone fell silent. In fact, they all knew that no one could possess the Tao scripture alone. It could only be shared. Jiang Yu understood the meaning of the crowd. He looked at the Pope, and the Pope looked at the governor elder and the others. "This sharing does not include you and your group." As he spoke, his eyes were filled with killing intent. An ancient temple. If there was no ancient temple, he would still have a chance to take the scriptures for himself. At the very least, he could only share the scriptures with Jiang Yu. Now, he wanted the Tao world's self-release realm experts to fight with the ancient temple. To him, the fewer Tao world self-release experts there were, the better. The self-release realm experts gazed at the governor elder and the others. They naturally rejected the ancient temple, because it didn't belong to the Tao world, and belonged to an outsider power. The governor elder's face darkened. At this time the Pope suddenly said, "Kill." With that, he dashed towards the governor elder. The other self-release realm experts also charged at the governor elder and the others. The governor elder's expression changed, and he quickly said, "Retreat." As soon as he finished speaking, he led the sadhus of the ancient temple to turn around and run. The Pope still wanted to chase, but the other self-release experts did not give chase. They weren't idiots, so why would they give chase? After all, the people of the ancient temple were all at the upper self-release realm. They just had to drive them away. All they had to do was drive them away. Once the people of the ancient temple fled, all the self-release realm experts gazed at the Pope. The Pope remained silent for a moment before he took out the book. At this moment, everyone's gazes converged onto the book. The Pope placed his right hand on the book and slowly exerted force. It didn't take long for the book to start trembling. A while later, the Pope frowned because he noticed that the book actually showed no signs of opening. Jiang Yu suddenly said, "Don't hold back." The Pope nodded and started to exert force. However, there was still no movement from the book. The Pope frowned and sized up the book. A short while later his face fell. "There's a restriction." Jiang Yu walked over to his side. "Was it done by Yi Xian?" The Pope shook his head. "He doesn't have the ability to do so. It was probably left behind by Yi Qingji." Jiang Yu spoke solemnly. "Can it be destroyed by force?" The Pope sized up the book again and shook his head. "I'm afraid not. If it really was a restriction set up by Yi Qingji, if we destroy it by force, what if?" At this point he didn't continue speaking. However, everyone understood what he meant. If they destroyed it by force and something happened to the book, everyone would be in trouble. At this moment Jiang Yu suddenly said, "Yi Xian." The Pope spoke solemnly. "He should be able to solve it. Let's go." With that, he led everyone and disappeared. They went to find Yi Xian once again. A monk suddenly appeared here when all of them vanished, and he glanced at them before vanishing as well. Sixth dimension, under the sacred mountain. At this moment, the Governor Elder's expression was very ugly. He had worked for the Tao world for nothing. Now the ancient temple was facing a huge problem, and that was the Tao world's revenge. If the Tao world broke through because of the Tao scripture, thinking of this, the Governor Elder's expression became even uglier. He couldn't let the Tao world cultivate the Tao scripture. Moreover, the ancient temple's precious Buddhist scripture was in there. Once the Tao world comprehended the Buddhist scripture, the ancient temple wouldn't be a match for the Tao world. It could be said that the ancient temple had reached a moment of life and death. At this moment, he suddenly regretted not joining forces with Yi Xian. At least, Yi Xian wouldn't be a threat to the ancient temple in a short period of time. Now the Tao world's threat to the ancient temple was fatal. At this moment, a monk suddenly appeared in front of the Governor Elder and whispered a few words. Soon, the Governor Elder suddenly laughed, and the gloominess from before was swept away. The Tao world couldn't open the Tao scripture. Upon hearing this, the Governor Elder almost burst out laughing. It couldn't be opened. If they couldn't open the book, wouldn't it be equivalent to not obtaining it? But very quickly, his expression darkened again. Because all the experts of the Tao world had gone to find Yi Xian. Yi Xian could open it. At this thought, the Governor Elder's expression changed, and he hurriedly said, "Gather everyone to the fifth dimension and protect Yi Xian." After saying that, he left with the few sadhus beside him. Inside the ancient temple, several powerful auras soared into the sky. At this moment, the Governor Elder only had one thought. He couldn't let Yi Xian fall into the hands of the Tao world. In the fifth dimension, Yi Xian suddenly walked out of the room. At this moment, he had a head full of white hair. Fortunately, his face was still the same, and there were no wrinkles. Yi Xian looked up at the horizon, and the corners of his mouth curled up. He was in a good mood. His heart was at ease. At this moment, his sword Tao attainment had reached a state of ease. Yi Xian suddenly pointed with his fingers, and a wisp of swordlight suddenly appeared in the clouds at the end of the horizon. The swordlight flew like a meteor. His heart was at ease, and his sword was at ease. Although his current realm hadn't reached self-release, his sword Tao attainment had. However, he now had a fatal problem, and that was his lifespan. His current lifespan was less than a year. It could be said that if he didn't break through his realm as soon as possible, he would die on the spot in a year. In addition, there was another problem, and that was the problem of his realm. Previously, in order to fight against the enemy, he had forcefully broken through to the origin returning realm. It had to be said that there were still many drawbacks, and the biggest drawback was that his realm was unstable. In short, there were many problems. Of course, there was a bigger problem now, and that was the Tao world. Yi Xian looked up at the horizon and said softly, "It's about time." As soon as he said that, powerful auras suddenly appeared at the end of the horizon. Upon seeing this, Yi Xian smiled and said, "They came really quickly." In fact, he had already expected that the Tao world would return. Why? Because the people of the Tao world definitely couldn't open the study room. Since they couldn't open it, they would definitely come to find him again. At this time, Guan Yin appeared beside Yi Xian, and there was a trace of worry in her eyes. Yi Xian smiled and said, "It's fine, I'll deal with them." After saying that, he turned into a sword light and shot into the sky. Soon he arrived in the starry sky. In front of him were the Pope and the other self-release realm experts. Upon seeing the Pope and the others, Yi Xian smiled. Clearly, the negotiations between the Tao world and the ancient temple had broken down. The Pope looked at Yi Xian and said, "Open the study room. Otherwise what?" At this time, a voice suddenly came from behind the Pope and the others. The Pope turned and saw that it was the Governor Elder and the others. Beside the Governor Elder, there were a total of 8 ascetics and 3 monks. The 8 ascetics were all at the self-release realm, and the remaining 3 monks were all at the self-release 1 realm. There were a total of 12 people. Seeing this scene, the Pope and the others' expressions turned somewhat ugly. What was the origin of this ancient temple? There were actually so many self-release realm experts. Based on the current situation, the ancient temple had even more top-rate experts than the God Palace and Immortal Pavilion. The Governor Elder glanced coldly at the Pope. "Pope, aren't you embarrassed to bully the weak?" The Pope remained expressionless. Didn't the Governor Elder bully the weak as well? The Governor Elder grunted coldly, and then he gazed at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, don't worry. No one can force you while my ancient temple is here." The Pope's eyes narrowed slightly. Obviously, the ancient temple didn't want Yi Xian to help them open the study room. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Governor Elder, I should help them open the study room." Everyone gazed at Yi Xian when they heard this, and even the Pope was quite stunned. When did Yi Xian become so nice? The Governor Elder's expression changed when he heard Yi Xian. "What are you thinking?" Yi Xian smiled with embarrassment. "Governor Elder, look. There are over 30 self-release realm experts. I can't defeat them. If I don't open the study room for them, then they'll definitely use the lives of my friends to threaten me." The Governor Elder pressed his palms together. "Young Master Yi, don't be afraid. With my ancient temple here, the Tao world can dream of touching a hair on your head. Today, young Master Yi lives as long as my ancient temple is here." The others were speechless. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 1242. Hearing the Governor Elder's words, the faces of the Pope and the rest darkened. On the other hand, the expressions of Guan Yin and the others became extremely strange. How did the ancient temple change so quickly? Previously, they wanted to get rid of Yi Xian like crazy. On the other side, Qian Mo looked at Yi Xian. At this moment, she suddenly thought of someone. Fifth-dimensional Tendo. Could this guy be related to the fifth-dimensional Tendo? Both of them were so good at conning people. At first, she felt that handing over the book house was a foolish move. But now it seemed like it was a wise move. Handing over the book house would separate the ancient temple from the Tao world. Qian Mo glanced at Yi Xian. It seemed like she had to be more careful with this guy in the future. Not far away, the Pope looked at the Governor Elder. "Sir, does your ancient temple want to become enemies with the entire Tao world?" The Governor Elder smiled. "Think about it. If you guys comprehend the Tao scripture, will you let my ancient temple go?" The Pope looked at the Governor Elder, not saying a word. The Governor Elder looked at Yi Xian. "We know what young Master Yi is worried about. But I guarantee to young Master Yi that no one can touch young Master Yi today." The Pope suddenly sneered. "With just you." The governing elder looked at the self-release experts behind the Pope and smiled. "Everyone, if our two sides fight, my ancient temple might lose, but many of you will definitely die. If I were the Pope, I would use this opportunity to reduce the number of self-release experts by my side. This way, there will be fewer people to share the Tao scripture with. Saying this, he looked at the Pope. What do you think, Pope? The Pope sneered. You want to sow discord between us? The governor elder smiled. Sow discord? Pope, the people behind you are not fools. Do you think they will be used by you? The Pope looked at Jiang Yu and the rest. If we don't deal with the ancient temple, we won't be able to open the book house to obtain the Tao scripture. Everyone was silent. At this moment, they were in a difficult position. They knew that if they didn't get rid of the ancient temple, they wouldn't be able to obtain the scripture. However, if they fought the ancient temple, most of them would die. Besides, once they make their move, Yi Xian will join forces with the ancient temple. At that time, both sides will perish together. This Yi Xian cannot be underestimated. Seeing that everyone was silent, the Pope's face turned even uglier. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly walked over to the governor elder's side, and he hesitated for a moment before he said, Grandmaster, I think I should open the study room for them. In any case, I, Yi Xian, don't want the bookstore. I just hope that everyone can give me a way out. The governor elder glanced at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, don't pretend with this old monk. This old monk knows what you're thinking, and so does the Pope. Yi Xian's face was filled with black lines. They were all cunning old foxes. In the distance, the Pope suddenly said, Young Master Yi, I think we can talk. Talk. The Pope suddenly understood something. What if Yi Xian was willing to open the study room for them? Once Yi Xian was willing to stand on the side of the Tao world, what could the ancient temple do? Although the strength of the fifth dimension was inferior to the Tao world and the ancient temple, it still couldn't be underestimated. Once Yi Xian helped the Tao world, the ancient temple couldn't do anything. Hearing the Pope's words, everyone suddenly understood that Yi Xian was the key. If Yi Xian helped the Tao world, what could the ancient temple do? The ancient temple could only watch. The ancient temple naturally understood this. He looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, the Tao world has the ambition of wolves. They wanted to slaughter the entire fifth dimension. The Pope sneered. Didn't you say that young Master Yi is the greatest threat and should be eliminated quickly? Was it you, Governor Elder? The Governor Elder said coldly, Of course. Now my ancient temple will live and die with young Master Yi. Live and die with him. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched when he heard this. This old monk is really good at ting. He's even talking about living and dying with him. The Pope gazed at the Governor Elder. Master, you're not part of this world. How could you speak such shameless words? The Governor Elder pressed his palms together. Pope, no matter what you say today, my ancient temple will stand firmly on young Master Yi's side. The Pope stared fixedly at the Governor Elder. If his gaze could kill, then the Governor Elder would have probably died 100 times. Meanwhile, Jiang Yu suddenly looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, what do you think? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, I'm afraid of death. Afraid of death. The eyelids of everyone here twitched when they heard this. They naturally didn't believe Yi Xian's nonsense. Is this fellow afraid of death? As far as they were concerned, Yi Xian wasn't afraid of death. Meanwhile, Jiang Yu suddenly said, Young Master Yi, none of us here are stupid, and we're clearly aware of what young Master Yi is thinking. I hope that young Master Yi is aware of what we're thinking as well. Yi Xian fell silent. He knew that it wasn't very realistic to want the ancient temple and the Tao world to perish together. Moreover, the slightest mistake might cause the ancient temple to join forces with the Tao world again. When he thought up to this point, Yi Xian smiled and said, I know what all of you are thinking. However, I'm powerless against this study room. Jiang Yu frowned slightly. What do you mean? Yi Xian gazed at the Pope. Pope, lend me the study room. The Pope gazed at Yi Xian in silence. Meanwhile, Jiang Yu suddenly said, Give it to him. The Pope frowned. Is there something wrong with you? Didn't you hear what he said? He can't open the study room. The old monk stared at the Pope. Buddha is merciful. Merciful. The Pope was so angry that he laughed. Merciful? Old monk, what are you talking about? Merciful? Are you kidding me? Jiang Yu and the rest had a strange look on their faces. Merciful. This old monk actually said something about merciful. What the hell? The governor elder said calmly, "Your Holiness, God is merciful. With our ancient temple here, don't even think of touching young Master Yi today." In fact, he wasn't sure if Yi Xian could open the study room. But he had no choice, and he didn't dare to gamble. What if Yi Xian could really open it? At that time, the ancient temple would be finished. So, he could only choose to help Yi Xian. The Pope suddenly wanted to speak. But at this time, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Everyone, I feel that the most urgent matter right now is to quickly return and think of a way to open the study room. Because according to what I know, that Patriarch Di Linyuan should have already obtained some secrets of the Tao scriptures from that plain-dressed woman." Jiang Yu frowned. "What do you mean?" Yi Xian smiled. "What I mean is, if Di Linyuan breaks through, do you think he will let you read the Tao scriptures?" Jiang Yu said in a low voice, "There is also a possibility that the plain-dressed woman is still alive." Yi Xian looked at Jiang Yu. "Do you dare to gamble?" "Dare to gamble?" Jiang Yu was silent. He didn't dare to gamble. If Di Linyuan was really alive, and he reached self-release or above, then they would all die. Yi Xian smiled. "Everyone, although the prophet is a genius, forgive me for speaking bluntly, but all of you aren't inferior to him. I believe that after everyone returns to the Tao world, if you can gather some special people or array masters, then there will definitely be a way to break the restrictions of the study room. So, rather than fighting me and the ancient temple to the death, why don't we go back and think of a way to open the study room and obtain the Tao scriptures?" The Pope stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "If you don't die, we won't be able to rest easy." Yi Xian smiled. And then he said, "If you obtain the Tao scriptures and reach self-release or above, wouldn't killing me be as easy as snapping a finger?" The Pope still wanted to say something, but Jiang Yu suddenly said, "Return to the Tao world." With that, he led all the self-release realm experts and left. Now that the study room was in Jiang Yu's hands, he had the right to speak. And he didn't have that much hatred towards Yi Xian. The Pope's expression was slightly unsightly. Yi Xian looked at the Pope, and then he smiled. "Does the Pope want to challenge all of us?" The Pope stared fixedly at Yi Xian, and then he turned and disappeared into the horizon. After the Pope and the others left, the governor elder looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, can you really open that study room?" Yi Xian's lips curled up. "Master guess. The governor elder. P.S. There are always readers sending me messy things in private. I'm really not that kind of person, so don't send it to me. Especially don't send it in the group. This kind of thing has a bad influence. Do you understand what I mean?" Chapter 1243. Make a guess. The governor elder looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Could Yi Xian open the study room? He was not sure. Yi Xian was very cunning. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Master, what you need to think about now is that we have time." The governor elder frowned. "What do you mean?" Yi Xian rolled his eyes at the governor elder. "First, they can't open the study room for now. Second, we have more time to think about how to deal with them. What do you think?" The governor elder hesitated for a moment and said, "What should we do if they manage to open the study room in a short period of time?" Yi Xian said seriously, "That's why we have to hurry. We have to snatch it back before they open the study room." Snatch it back. The governor elder looked at Yi Xian. "Do you think you can snatch it back?" Yi Xian smiled. "Are we just going to sit here and wait for death?" The governor elder was silent. Yi Xian said, "I have a way to snatch it back." The governor elder looked at Yi Xian. "What way?" Yi Xian said, "You should know that the study room has recognized me as its owner. I have a spiritual connection with it, so I can sense where it is." The governor elder shook his head. "So what? Even if you know where it is, you can't snatch it back." Yi Xian smiled. "What if we work together?" The governor elder was silent. Yi Xian added, "Governor elder, I hope you understand one thing. The Taoist scriptures and the Buddhist scriptures are in the hands of the world of Tao. If we don't work together, we will all die in the end." The governor elder looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, I'm afraid of you. You have too many tricks up your sleeves." Yi Xian shrugged. If that's the case, Governor Elder, let's part ways here. Then he turned around and left. At this time, the Governor Elder suddenly said, Young Master Yi, please wait. Yi Xian looked at the Governor Elder and smiled. Governor Elder, is there anything I can help you with? The Governor Elder said solemnly, Young Master Yi, I think we can work together. Yi Xian said with smile. I need to see the abbot of the ancient temple. The Governor Elder frowned. What does Young Master Yi mean? Yi Xian shook his head. Governor Elder, you're too timid and don't have enough courage. I don't want to talk to you. The Governor Elder looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian was about to speak when the space in front of the Governor Elder suddenly split open, and then a white-robed old monk walked out. Seeing this white-robed old monk, the Governor Elder hurriedly bowed respectfully. Abbot. The person who came was the abbot of the ancient temple. The abbot looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Young Master Yi, shall we talk? Yi Xian smiled. Sure. The abbot made an inviting gesture. Yi Xian also made an inviting gesture, and then the two of them walked into the depths of the starry sky. On the way, the abbot suddenly said, Young Master Yi, you're so young, but not only have you achieved freedom of mind and swordsmanship, your wisdom is also unparalleled in the world. You're truly one of the best in the world. Yi Xian looked at the abbot, feeling a little shocked. The abbot actually saw through his current attainments in swordsmanship. One must know that the Governor Elder, the Pope, and the others did not see through it. The abbot said with a smile, Young Master Yi, I'm very curious about something. I hope Young Master Yi can enlighten me. Yi Xian nodded. Abbot, please speak, the abbot said softly. As far as I know, there are some mysterious powerhouses behind Young Master Yi. These people have mysterious origins, and are very powerful. But why did no one come forward to help Young Master Yi this time? Yi Xian smiled and said, Abbot, why don't you take a guess? The abbot shook his head and smiled. I can't guess. Yi Xian chuckled. Abbot, my family told me to rely on myself for everything. Rely on himself. The abbot fell silent. He naturally understood the meaning behind Yi Xian's words. He was saying that there was someone behind Yi Xian, and the reason why they did not take action was purely to train him, Yi Xian. Yi Xian suddenly said, Abbot, there's something I don't understand too. The abbot chuckled. Young Master Yi, please speak. Yi Xian looked at the abbot. It's said that ancient temples are very mysterious. Can Abbot tell me more about them? The abbot fell silent. Yi Xian smiled and said, You can't say? The abbot chuckled and said, Since Young Master Yi is asking, then I can tell Young Master Yi. Young Master Yi should know that our ancient temples are all outsiders. Everyone practices the Buddhist Dharma, and we come from the Brahma heaven realm. The Brahma heaven realm is also known as the realm of ultimate bliss. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Brahma heaven realm? Above the Tao world? The abbot shook his head. No. Yi Xian said, Please enlighten me, Abbot. The abbot nodded. There should be 4 places in this universe that Young Master Yi doesn't understand. The first is the Brahma heaven realm. That is the birthplace of the Buddhist Dharma. Not to mention Young Master Yi. No one in the Tao world knows about this realm. The second is above the Tao world. Above the Tao world is the godly kingdom of Shimi. It is an ancient country that has been passed down for nearly 1,000,000 years. This country's royal family has the legendary ancestral blood, which is the ancestor of all bloodlines. The power of their bloodline is close to invincible. Saying this, he glanced at Yi Xian. Of course, Young Master Yi's bloodline is also extremely powerful. Yi Xian smiled and said, Between my bloodline and this ancestral blood, which is more powerful? After a moment of silence, the abbot shook his head. I don't know. However, according to this old monk's guess, it should be the ancestral blood. Yi Xian smiled and said, Why? The abbot said softly, The ancestral blood suppresses all bloodlines. I'm afraid Young Master Yi's bloodline can't surpass the ancestral blood. Of course, I don't know the specifics. In the future, Young Master Yi might have the opportunity to see this ancestral blood. Yi Xian nodded. Abbot, continue. The abbot said again. The third place is the legendary Ascension platform. It is said that this Ascension platform is a world of its own. and inside this world is the Saha world. Rumor has it that the Tao scriptures came from this world, and through this ascension platform, one can reach the Saha world. However, this ascension platform is extremely mysterious because no one knows where it is. Ascension platform. Yi Xian nodded slightly and made a mental note of this place, then asked, "What about the last place?" The abbot said softly, "The legendary Milky Way realm." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "The legendary Milky Way realm? Where is it?" The abbot smiled. "I don't know the specifics, but according to the scriptures of the ancient temple, the Milky Way realm is a very mysterious place. The reason why it's mysterious is because every once in a while, a few geniuses will appear in our universe. And these geniuses' behavior is very strange, very different from the people of our world. Whether it's the way they speak or the way they act, they are very different from us. And their thinking is also very strange. According to the records of the ancient temple's records, these people with strange behaviors all come from the Milky Way realm, and they all call themselves transmigrators." Transmigrators? Yi Xian blinked. "Transmigrators? What do you mean?" The abbot clasped his hands together. "They are transmigrators. These people's luck is often extremely heaven-defying, and their cultivation and fortuitous encounters are beyond our imagination. It is like cheating. However, they are often suppressed by the Tendo, because in the eyes of the Tendo, they are outsiders, illegal residents. However, there are also some transmigrators who are extremely powerful and kill the Tendo. In short, they are a very special group of people." As he said that, he looked at Yi Xian. "Actually, in the beginning, our ancient temple also thought that young Master Yi is such a person. But later we found out that young Master Yi is not such a person." Yi Xian was a little puzzled. "Why do you say so?" The abbot said with a smile, "If young Master Yi is such a person, the Tendo of the 5 dimensions will never help young Master Yi. Also, young Master Yi's fate and karma is in this universe. We can still be sure of this." Yi Xian was silent. At this moment he thought of a person. The little girl with horns on her head. That little girl's behavior was very strange. Her clothes were also strange. Her speech was even more strange. That fellow couldn't be from the Milky Way realm, right? And that little white fellow. That little white fellow was also a little strange. The abbot suddenly said, "Actually, there is another place, but I don't know whether that place exists or not." Yi Xian collected his thoughts and looked at the abbot. "What place?" The abbot said in a deep voice, "The underworld." "The underworld?" Yi Xian frowned slightly. "What place?" The abbot said softly, "The world we are in now is the world of the living. But it is said that there is another world, the underworld. And this underworld is right beside us. But we can't step into that world because it doesn't belong to us. And the people from that world can't enter our world either. Unless..." At this point he suddenly stopped talking. Yi Xian was curious. "Unless what?" The abbot looked at Yi Xian. "Only those who can see through all the obstacles in the world can see the underworld. So far, I have not seen such a person. However, the world is divided into yin and yang. Since we belong to the world of the living, then the underworld might also exist." "The underworld?" Yi Xian fell silent. It seemed like he would have to ask Mu Ninian, or the plain-dressed woman sometimes. Among the people he knew, only these 2 people might know if the underworld existed in this world. At this moment, the abbot suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, can we talk about how to deal with the Tao world now?" Yi Xian collected his thoughts and said with a smile, "Of course. Abbot, my idea is very simple. We can't let the Tao world open the bookstore to cultivate the Taoist and Buddhist scriptures inside. What do you think?" The abbot nodded. "I have the same idea as young Master Yi." Yi Xian looked at the abbot and said with a smile, "I know the ancient temple is afraid of me, but based on the current situation, the Tao world is the greatest threat to us. What do you think, abbot?" The abbot said with a smile, "Young Master Yi, don't worry. While we are working together, the ancient temple will not do anything detrimental to young Master Yi." Yi Xian said with a smile, "That's good. Abbot, to be honest, I have a way to take back the bookstore, but I need to reach the self-release realm to have the confidence to take back the bookstore. Moreover, after taking it back, I can open the bookstore. The abbot fell silent. Yi Xian said again, once I take back the bookstore, I will immediately open the bookstore, and then we can share it. During this period, we also need to work together, because the Tao world will definitely not let us open the bookstore just like that. The abbot looked at Yi Xian. The premise is that young Master Yi reaches the self-release realm. Is that right? Yi Xian nodded. The abbot stared at Yi Xian. When will young Master Yi reach the self-release realm? Yi Xian looked at the abbot and said seriously, Master, you have to help me. The abbot clasped his hands together. Ba, young Master Yi, your tricks are deep. Yi Xian. Chapter 1244. At this moment, a trace of fear arose in the abbot's heart. This Yi Xian's scheme was truly too good. Moreover, the ancient temple couldn't refuse. As if knowing what the abbot was thinking, Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, Master, do you believe in me or the Tao world? The abbot was silent. Yi Xian said, when I, Yi Xian, do things, if people don't betray me, then I won't betray them. The abbot pressed his palms together. Young Master Yi, if you reach self-release, can you really take back that study? Yi Xian nodded. I can. The abbot nodded. Young Master Yi, can we meet at the ancient temple? Yi Xian pressed his palms together. Abbot, I have a presumptuous request. The abbot looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, please speak. Yi Xian waved his right hand. The two red-robed monks he had trapped in the prison pagoda appeared in front of the abbot. The abbot was a little surprised. Young Master Yi, what are you doing? Yi Xian smiled and said, returning these two masters to the ancient temple. The abbot looked at Yi Xian for a moment and then smiled. Thank you, young Master Yi. Two upper self-release realm experts were still extremely important to the ancient temple. Yi Xian glanced below and said, Master, I have some friends who have already reached half-step self-release. I believe that the ancient temple has a way to help them break through to self-release. Right? For the ancient temple to have so many upper self-release realm experts, this definitely wasn't just a matter of talent. In many cases, besides talent and hard work, one also needed a good platform. Otherwise, no matter how good one's talent or hard work was, it could all be wasted. The abbot was silent for a long time and then said softly, Young Master Yi, to tell you the truth, my ancient temple does indeed have this ability. Yi Xian smiled and said, the ancient temple is afraid of me, so it won't help them break through, right? The abbot shook his head. Just the opposite. Yi Xian was a little surprised. What do you mean? The abbot smiled faintly. Young Master Yi didn't forget the people around him at this time. This is enough to prove that young Master Yi is a person who values friendship and righteousness. I am very assured that our ancient temple will ally with young Master Yi. As he spoke, he looked below. I will have the inherited martial monk head to the lower realms, and have him help everyone break through to the self-release realm. Yi Xian smiled and said, Thank you. The abbot glanced at the two red-robed monks not far away. Just take it as thanks to young Master Yi for not killing us. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, as for you, your realm is not stable right now. If you want to break through, you must come with me to the ancient temple to study my ancient temple scriptures, stabilize your realm, and then try to break through to self-release. Yi Xian thought about it and nodded. Thank you very much. The abbot smiled and said, Young Master Yi, please. Yi Xian smiled. Let me explain. As he spoke, he turned and looked at Guan Yi not far away. Don't worry also, Miss Guan. You are very talented, so don't waste it. Take this chance. Guan Yi looked at Yi Xian and nodded. Okay. As she said this, she paused and then said, Will you come back? Actually, what she was most afraid of was that Yi Xian wouldn't come back. Yi Xian already had the strength to leave this universe, so she could too. However, she couldn't bring the spirit Yin race away. Yi Xian smiled. Of course. Guan Yi nodded. We will wait for you to come back. Yi Xian looked at Enlanxio and Zhang Wenxiu who were rushing over. Reach self-release. Enlanxio nodded. Definitely. Seven looked at Yi Xian. I will definitely be faster than you. Yi Xian. Zhang Wenxia walked in front of Yi Xian. Be careful. Yi Xian smiled. I know, don't worry. I will come back once I reach self-release. I said before that I will live and die with the five-dimensional universe. Zhang Wenxia nodded. Okay. Yi Xian turned and looked at the abbot. Abbot, let's go. The abbot nodded. Okay. Very quickly, Yi Xian, the abbot, and the others disappeared into the starry sky. At this moment, Seven suddenly said, Will those bald donkeys play any tricks? Guanyin said, They will. Everyone looked at Guanyin and Guanyin said softly, They can let Yi Xian break through here. But they want Yi Xian to go to the ancient temple. They definitely have a plan. Hearing this, worry appeared in the eyes of all the girls. Guanyin said, Don't be afraid. They have more tricks up their sleeves. The ancient temple won't be able to take advantage of them. All the girls, Yi Xian the abbot, and the others arrived at the sixth dimension. Not long later, they arrived at the foot of the mountain. The abbot didn't fly into the ancient temple directly. Instead, he led Yi Xian and the others towards the ancient temple. Yi Xian suddenly asked, Abbot, didn't you say that outsiders aren't allowed to enter the ancient temple? The abbot smiled. You can make an exception. Exception? Yi Xian smiled. He raised his head and looked at the ancient temple. One had to say that he was quite curious. This was because the ancient temple was very mysterious. He wanted to see what was so mysterious about it. Not long later, they walked halfway up the mountain, and the abbot suddenly said, Young Master Yi, are you interested in Buddhism? Buddhism. At this moment, the voice from the ninth floor sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Kid, he wants you to become a monk, haha. Yi Xian said with a smile. Master, what is Buddhism? The abbot smiled. Young Master Yi, you can understand it when the time comes. Yi Xian nodded. All right, I can understand it. As they spoke, they arrived at the ancient temple's mountain gate. The mountain gate wasn't big and was very simple. There were 2 stone pillars and a signboard with the words Ancient Temple written on it. It was very simple. Behind the stone gate was a Xiao Dao made of gravel. At the end of the Xiao Dao was a temple. The temple wasn't big, nor was it glorious. It was just a simple temple. The abbot led Yi Xian towards the temple. Along the way, Yi Xian saw some monks. When these monks saw the abbot, they would stop and bow. One had to say that Yi Xian was a little shocked, because the monks he saw were at least at the self-release realm. Self-release realm walking around like dogs? Yi Xian was incomparably shocked. Was this ancient temple so terrifying? At this time, a monk wearing a black robe and holding a magic staff walked in front of the abbot. The abbot clasped his hands together. Ji Wu, go to the 5th dimension and help young Master Ye's friends break through to the self-release realm. The black-robed monk looked at Yi Xian. His gaze was like a sword, incomparably sharp. There was a sharp killing intent coming from this black-robed monk. However, he wasn't afraid of this killing intent. Yi Xian had killed many people. Ji Wu looked at Yi Xian and retracted his gaze. Then, he clasped his hands together and turned to leave. At this time the abbot said, Ji Wu, when you go down you must be courteous, understand? His voice was a bit heavy, carrying an invisible majesty. He knew that Yi Xian had an explosive temper. This guy was too sentimental. If Ji Wu went down and had an unpleasant encounter with the people of the 5th dimension, with this guy's personality, he would definitely explode. Once Yi Xian joined the Dao world, it would be extremely disadvantageous to the ancient temple. Hearing the abbot's words, Ji Wu nodded and quickly disappeared into the distance. The abbot looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, please. Yi Xian nodded. Soon, the abbot brought Yi Xian to a small house. Inside the house, there were only 2 praying mats. The abbot said, Young Master Yi, please. Yi Xian nodded and sat down. The abbot sat in front of him and took out a Buddhist scripture. He opened the first page and said, Young Master Yi, I will tell you about this Sanzang scripture. It is divided into 3 parts. I will tell you about the first part, reciting as I have heard, the myriad Dharma, the kind heart. Yi Xian's expression became somewhat strange. This guy wouldn't really want him to become a monk, right? At this time, the abbot suddenly said, Young Master Yi, calm your chi and focus. Don't think too much. This scripture can stabilize young Master Ye's realm. Young Master Yi, please listen quietly. Yi Xian. Dao world. After Jiang Yu and the others returned to the Dao world, Jiang Yu did not go to the God Palace. Instead, he returned to his old lair, the Immortal Pavilion. Of course, the Pope and the others followed closely behind him. Inside the Immortal Pavilion, Jiang Yu looked at everyone and said, "Everyone, our top priority now is to open this study room. Please rest assured that I, Jiang Yu, am a man of my word. If the study room is opened, everyone will share it and not monopolize it. I don't have the ability to monopolize it." A self-release realm old man nodded slightly. "We naturally believe in Pavilion Master Jiang." The Pope glanced at Jiang Yu and did not speak. Jiang Yu spoke in a low voice. "If everyone knows any formation masters or extraordinary people, then feel free to summon them. I refuse to believe that no one can break through the restrictions set up by the Prophet." As he spoke, he gazed at the Pope and said, "Pope, the God Palace and my Immortal Pavilion have a rather wide network of contacts, so I'll have to trouble you to do so." The Pope nodded. "I've already notified the others. Some formation masters and warlocks of my God Palace are already rushing over." Jiang Yu nodded. "That's good." The Pope suddenly said, "I still feel that Yi Xian is a huge threat." Everyone looked at the Pope when they heard this. It was very obvious that the Pope still wanted Yi Xian to die. Jiang Yu spoke in a low voice. "Pope, you have to understand something. That woman in a plain dress and Di Linyuan might have already obtained the Tao scripture. Don't tell me that woman and Di Linyuan pose a greater threat than Yi Xian?" The Pope was silent. Jiang Yu continued, "Our top priority now is to open the study room and then study the Tao scripture. We must strive to reach above self-release realm before that woman or Di Linyuan. Otherwise, once one of them reaches above self-release realm, we will all die." A self-release realm old man nodded. Pavilion Master Zhang's words are reasonable. Our top priority now is to open the study room and reach above self-release realm. The other self-release realm experts also nodded. The Pope and Yi Xian were mortal enemies, but they did not have that much enmity with Yi Xian. In their hearts, the Tao scripture was the most important. The Pope glanced at everyone and did not speak again. If he continued, he would become everyone's enemy. It was very unwise. But he knew that Yi Xian's threat was even greater than Di Linyuan's. At this time, some people arrived at the Immortal Pavilion one after another. These people were called to break the study room's restrictions. And among this group of people, there was a woman carrying a roasted fish. She was mixed in the crowd, but no one noticed her because she was too ordinary. P.S. I have laid my cards on the table. Truth be told, I am not an ordinary person. If not for me guarding this world would have perished long ago. Now you all cast a monthly vote. That is planting good karma for yourselves. In the future, when this world's spiritual energy collapses and the Tao laws collapse, I can bring you all away. Good karma, good karma. A monthly vote is good karma, a profitable business. Why did so many people live ordinary lives? It was because they often did not grasp opportunities when they should have. Now with a monthly vote, their future would be full of laughter. Everyone looked at the spot where the Pope had been standing, but at this moment it was completely empty. Seeing this, Jiang Yu's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Pope! With that, he and the rest of the crowd vanished from where they stood, heading straight for the God Palace. Somewhere in the starry sky, the Pope's expression was incomparably grave, because someone had forcefully moved him to this place. He had no idea how he had been moved to this place. Who could it be? The Pope scanned his surroundings. The starry sky around him was very quiet. There was no business, no one. After a moment of silence, the Pope turned and left. His intuition told him that something was wrong. After the Pope left, a woman appeared on the scene. It was Mu Ninian. Meanwhile, a voice resounded by Mu Ninian's ear. "You can kill him, right?" Mu Ninian nodded. "Yes," the voice said. "Then why didn't you just kill him?" Mu Ninian smiled and said, "Idiot. If I killed him openly, Then wouldn't those fellows from the Tao world join forces to search for me? Just think about it. They have almost 50 self-release realm experts. Besides that, every single one of them has their own trump cards to protect themselves. Especially the God Palace and Immortal Pavilion. Wouldn't I be in trouble if they called their ancestors over? The voice thought for a moment and said, That seems to be the case. Moon Yinyan smiled and said, Besides that, if they notice that I can kill the Pope on my own, then wouldn't they become even more united? The voice said, Yes. Moon Yinyan grinned. So why not let them kill each other? The voice said, Will they kill each other? Moon Yinyan nodded. They will. Because this book house is very important to them. The voice said, Can you open the book house? Moon Yinyan looked at the book house in her hand and smiled. What do you think? The voice said. If you can, then why not open the book house and obtain the Tao scripture? Moon Yinyan smiled and said, I won't walk the path set by others. With that she turned and left. At this moment the voice said, Yinyan, is that woman the only one who can make you feel danger? Moon Yinyan shook her head. There are many dangers in this universe. It's just that I don't come into contact with them. As she spoke, she smiled and said, You don't think that I'm invincible besides that woman, right? The voice said, Isn't that the case? Moon Yinyan smiled and said, If there's nothing wrong with my body. As she spoke, she shook her head slightly. That's meaningless. Ling. What do you think of Yi Xian? The voice said, Are you going to give me to him? Moon Yinyan rolled her eyes at her right and said, You're not a thing. So how can I say that? What I want to say is that if you follow him, you'll at least be treated well. Moreover, he knows that little white fellow, so you'll have a great opportunity in the future. Linger said, I'll follow you. Moon Yinyan shook her head and smiled. Fine, let's not talk about this for now. As she spoke, she seemed to have thought of something and asked, Logically speaking, you're from that place, so you should have seen many experts. After a moment of silence, Linger said, I haven't seen too many. In any case, in my heart, you're the most powerful. Moon Yinyan laughed and said, I really want to go to that place of yours to take a look, but I have too many things to do. Linger hurriedly said, You can't go. Moon Yinyan smiled and said, All right. With that, she disappeared into the end of the starry sky. It didn't take long for Jiang Yu's group to arrive at the Bloodshed God Palace, and the expressions of everyone there changed drastically, because Jiang Yu's group had clearly come with ill intentions. An old man bowed slightly to Jiang Yu. Pavilion Master Jiang, what's going on? Jiang Yu stared fixedly at the old man. Where's the Pope? The old man was just about to speak when a powerful aura suddenly appeared here. And then a man appeared before them. It was the Pope who'd vanished earlier. The expressions of all the self-release realm experts here turned gloomy when they saw the Pope, and their gazes were hostile. The Pope frowned slightly. What's wrong? Jiang Yu stared fixedly at the Pope. Pope, where's the study? The Pope's face instantly fell when he heard this. It's not in my hands. Jiang Yu said angrily. It's not in your hands. Are you joking? All the self-release realm experts gazed at the Pope with hostile expressions. The Pope spoke solemnly. Brother Jiang, the study really isn't in my hands. Jiang Yu gazed at the Pope. You vanished with the study. The Pope spoke solemnly. Someone forcefully teleported me away. A mocking smile appeared on Jiang Yu's face. Forcefully teleported you away? Pope, aren't you going a bit too far with this joke? The Pope's expression was incomparably gloomy. Brother Jiang, someone is framing me. Jiang Yu was expressionless. Why do I feel like you're making things up? The Pope. Jiang Yu suddenly said. Pope, out of consideration for our many years, I'll give you a chance. Hand over the study, and we can pretend that nothing happened. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. The Pope took a deep breath and forcefully suppressed the fury in his heart. Brother Jiang, don't you know what sort of person I am? If I really did it, I would definitely admit to it. But I didn't do it. Brother Jiang, someone really is framing us, wanting us to kill each other. At this moment, Jiang Yu suddenly said, Attack. After saying this, he charged towards the Pope. The people behind Jiang Yu also charged out. Kill the Pope. At this moment, this was the only thought in their minds. Anyone who snatched the study would become their mortal enemy. Seeing Jiang Yu and the others charge over, the Pope's expression instantly changed, and he hurriedly said, "Get out of the formation." As soon as he said this, a powerful aura suddenly soared into the sky from within the Bloodshed God Palace. In an instant, the entire horizon was covered by all sorts of golden runes. These golden runes spun rapidly, and rays of golden light constantly shot out. It had to be said that this formation was very strong, but no matter how strong it was, it could not stop the dozens of self-release realm experts present. In an instant, the formation was destroyed by the combined forces of dozens of experts. At this time, the Pope had already retreated into the Bloodshed God Palace. Beside him were 7 self-release realm experts, all of them super experts of the Bloodshed God Palace. At this moment, the expressions of these 7 self-release realm experts were somewhat unsightly, or rather solemn. Dozens of self-release realm experts. How could the Bloodshed God Palace resist this? With the Bloodshed God Palace's current strength, it was impossible to resist so many experts. Everyone looked towards the Pope. The Pope glared at the distant Jiang Yu. "Brother Jiang, if I obtain this study, why would I come back and walk right into this trap? Think about it carefully. Is there nothing strange about this?" Jiang Yu fiercely said, "Pope, who knows whether or not you are deliberately mystifying things to confuse me?" An old self-release realm expert also said, "Pope, the situation at the time was that you and the study disappeared together. Just now, you said that someone forcefully teleported you away. Let me ask the Sword Sect, in the current world of Tao, who could forcefully teleport you away without anyone knowing? And now you say that someone is trying to frame you. Let me ask you, who do you think is trying to frame you? Is it us?" The Pope solemnly said, "It might be Yi Xian." "Bullshit." At this time, Jiang Yu suddenly said angrily, "Pope, that Yi Xian is far away in the 5th dimension. How could he frame you? In this kind of situation, you still want to frame him? Did that Yi Xian dig up your ancestral grave?" The Pope's expression became extremely unsightly. "Brother Jiang, I think it's extremely likely that it's him." Jiang Yu suddenly said, "Kill." After saying this, he directly led everyone towards the Pope. Chapter 1246. Seeing Jiang Yu and the others rush over, the Pope's expression changed drastically. At this moment, he knew that even if he jumped into the heavenly river, he would not be able to clear his name. Someone had framed him, and he had no way of explaining himself. In fact, this was normal. Back in the Immortal Pavilion, he had disappeared with the study room. Who else would they suspect if not him? Thinking of this, the Pope did not hesitate and turned to run. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the horizon. He was very clear that the current Bloodshed God Palace could not stop Jiang Yu and the others. Even if they used all their trump cards, they could not stop so many self-release realm experts. Run! This was his only way out. Seeing the Pope flee, everyone was dumbfounded. The people of the Bloodshed God Palace were also dumbfounded. The Pope had abandoned them just like that? Jiang Yu and the others had a savage look on their faces. What did the Pope's escape mean? It meant that they had definitely taken the study room. They had a guilty conscience. Thinking of this, Jiang Yu suddenly said, "After him." Then, he led the others in pursuit of the Pope. Seeing Jiang Yu and the others chase after the Pope, the experts in the Bloodshed God Palace heaved a sigh of relief. But soon their expressions turned ugly. The Pope's actions just now were truly heartless. He had been abandoned just like that. The experts in the Bloodshed God Palace looked at each other. At this moment, they had many thoughts. They could not stay in the Bloodshed God Palace any longer. Soon, the news of the Pope stealing the study room spread throughout the entire Tao world. At this moment, all the experts in the Tao world were looking for the Pope. Especially Jiang Yu and the others. They were practically going crazy. 6th-dimensional universe, ancient temple. Inside the small house, the abbot was still explaining the Tripitaka scripture to Yi Xian. At first, Yi Xian had a headache listening to it, because he really did not have much interest in Buddhist teachings. But soon he found it interesting. Buddhist teachings. This was also a form of knowledge and cultivation. Of course, it did not belong to his Tao, but there was no harm in understanding it. Moreover, this Tripitaka scripture could indeed help him stabilize his realm. Just like that, Yi Xian also tried to learn. Seeing that Yi Xian was willing to learn, the abbot's smile widened. At dawn the next day, the abbot suddenly put down the scripture in his hand and said, "Young Master Yi, let's have breakfast." With that, he got up and left. Yi Xian also stood up. At that moment, a young monk walked in. He was about 16 or 17 years old and had some baby fat. The little monk walked in front of Yi Xian and took out a set of gray monk robes for Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, please change into the monk robes and remove the dust on your body." Yi Xian's expression was a little strange. "Little master, I'm not from the ancient temple." The little monk put his palms together. "Almsgiver Yi, please do as the Romans do when you enter the temple." Yi Xian was somewhat speechless. Did these guys really want to become monks? Yi Xian thought for a moment, then changed into his monk robes. He looked at the little monk and said, "Don't tell me you still want me to shave my head." The little monk shook his head. "Young Master Yi is thinking too much. It's not that easy to enter my ancient temple." Yi Xian was speechless. Soon, Yi Xian was brought to the vegetarian hall by the little monk. It was a very simple and crude vegetarian hall. It was built with a few pieces of wood. The vegetarian food was also very simple, just some porridge and steamed buns. At this moment, there were already 6 or 7 monks eating. Among them, he met a familiar person. It was the old monk who first went to the 5th dimension to find him. Beside the old monk was a woman. She was bald and wore a monk robe. She looked very pretty. The old monk glanced at Yi Xian and put his palms together. "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian walked to the side of the old monk and said with a smile, "Master, I didn't expect to meet you again." The old monk nodded slightly. It's really hard to say when it comes to fate. Yi Xian picked up a steamed bun and smiled. Then he looked at another familiar person, the Governor Elder. "Governor Elder, I feel that the current situation of the ancient temple is very dangerous." The Governor Elder glanced at Yi Xian. "What do you mean?" Yi Xian smiled. "Once the Tao world opens the study room, we will all die. What do you think?" The Governor Elder said softly, "Even if they open the study room, they won't be able to reach soul release in a short time." Yi Xian shook his head. They have already reached the limit of soul release. For them, they are just missing an opportunity. And this Tao scripture is that opportunity. The Governor Elder was silent. Yi Xian said again, "Governor Elder and everyone here, I know that everyone is afraid of me, Yi Xian, and feels that I am a threat. I just want to tell everyone that the biggest threat to you now is the Tao world." The Governor Elder and the others were silent. Yi Xian added, "There is really no need to be wary of me. I am a good person." The Governor Elder glanced at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, are you a good person?" Yi Xian asked with a smile. "Have I done anything evil?" The Governor Elder was silent. Although Yi Xian had killed many people, it did not seem right to say that he was evil beyond redemption. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Everyone, I will emphasize for the last time that your opponent is the Tao world, not me, Yi Xian." As he spoke, he looked at the Governor Elder. "Governor Elder, if you had cooperated with me back then, the Tao scripture would have been in our hands by now. It was your decision back then that caused the ancient temple to fall into such a passive situation." Then he picked up 2 steamed buns and turned to leave. At that moment, the old monk suddenly said, "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian turned to look at the old monk. "What can I do for you, master?" The old monk put his palms together. "Young Master Yi, each person has 1 steamed bun. Don't take more." Yi Xian was speechless. After a while, Yi Xian had already left the vegetarian hall. The monks in the vegetarian hall looked grave and did not continue eating. The Tao world. They had been worried during this period. If the Tao world opened the book house and obtained the Tao scripture and the ancient temple's most precious Buddhist scripture, it would be a disaster for the ancient temple. At that moment, the female monk suddenly said, "He went to the back mountain." The back mountain. Upon hearing that, all the monks turned to look at the back mountain. Soon, the Governor Elder disappeared on the spot. Why did this fellow run around? The monks looked at each other in dismay. Yi Xian strolled to the back mountain. The back mountain of the ancient temple was very quiet. Moreover, it was early in the morning, so it was exceptionally quiet. Yi Xian walked in the Xiaodao. At that moment he was very calm. He rarely took a stroll like this. Restlessness. He knew that he had many problems, such as restlessness. Swordsman cultivated the heart, but most of the time, his heart was restless. Yi Xian looked up at the sky. There was a red sun. Facing the sun, he focused his mind. Yi Xian opened his palm, and a sword light appeared in his hand. His heart was at ease. His current attainments in the sword Dao were much stronger than before. It could be said that he could fight a self-release realm expert, without the help of external objects. If his realm stabilized, he could kill a self-release realm expert, without the help of any external objects or bloodline power. However, against experts like the Pope and the Abbot, he still needed the help of external objects. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and walked forward. Soon, he arrived in front of a small temple. In front of the temple, a hunchbacked monk was sweeping the floor. The monk was somewhat old, and his face was wizen, but he carried a trace of benevolence. At this moment, the sweeping monk looked up at Yi Xian. He pressed his palms together, and bowed slightly to Yi Xian. Yi Xian hurriedly returned the bow and said, "Greetings, Grand Master." The sweeping monk nodded slightly. "Greetings, young Master Yi." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Grand Master, why is it that the people of the world say that ancient temples are very mysterious? But after I entered, I discovered that the ancient temple seems very ordinary, perhaps even excessively ordinary?" The sweeping monk smiled. "Not knowing makes it seem mysterious," Yi Xian asked. "Then why does the ancient temple forbid outsiders from coming here?" The sweeping monk shook his head. "We don't forbid others from coming here, but many people think that we do." Yi Xian fell silent. The sweeping monk continued. "There are many monks in the ancient temple who came from the outside. Of course, we do not allow people with evil intentions to come here." Yi Xian pointed at himself. "Grand Master, do you think I'm good or evil?" The sweeping monk smiled. "Young Master Yi is not an evil person." Yi Xian smiled. "Since I'm not an evil person, why does the ancient temple want to kill me?" The sweeping monk chuckled. He pointed at a chicken pecking rice not far away and said, "Young Master Yi, have you ever eaten chicken?" Yi Xian nodded. "I have." The monk who was sweeping the floor asked, "Did that chicken do anything evil?" Yi Xian fell silent. The sweeping monk chuckled. "Young Master Yi, this world is very complicated. Most of the time, good isn't really good, and evil isn't really evil either." As he said that, he placed the broom to the side, clasped his hands together, and said softly, "The current rule of the world is that the strong are respected, and the strong set the rules. Good and evil are just tools used by the strong to enslave the people of the world. Furthermore, many people in this world have a serious double standard. Those who benefit them are good, and those who harm them are evil. This also includes our ancient temple." Including the ancient temple? Yi Xian looked at the sweeping monk, and was a little shocked. Was he criticizing the ancient temple? The sweeping monk smiled. "Wrong is wrong, right is right. There's nothing to hide." Yi Xian smiled. "Grand Master, you're different from other monks." The sweeping monk shook his head. "They think too much, but they ignore our original intentions." As he said that, he looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, do you know what karma is about you?" Yi Xian nodded. "I know." The sweeping monk said softly, "Young Master Yi's karma is so complicated that it's really rare." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Is it very rare?" The sweeping monk nodded. "The prophet's karma is not bad, but the other two karma." Yi Xian clasped his hands together. "Grand Master, don't Buddhists pay particular attention to expiation? Can Grand Master resolve my karma, and let me become a normal person?" The sweeping monk hurriedly shook his head. "Young Master Yi, please don't joke around. Your karma is too terrifying. This old monk doesn't dare to interfere." Yi Xian said seriously, "Shouldn't people outside of this world be compassionate?" The old monk clasped his hands together. "That's right, but you can't sacrifice me to save you." Yi Xian. P.S. Please buy a monthly ticket. This month is coming to an end. Just a guaranteed monthly ticket would do. Chapter 1247. Yi Xian fell silent. The old monk in front of him was not ordinary at all. Firstly, he could not sense the other party's aura. In front of him, the other party was like an ordinary person. Even the abbot did not give him such a feeling. Yi Xian looked at the old monk and said with a smile, "Master, what you mean is that if you are willing to risk your life, you can remove the karma on me, right?" The old monk hurriedly shook his head. No, this old monk can't do it." Yi Xian was speechless. The old monk sized up Yi Xian and then said softly, "Young Master Yi, your karma is too complicated. This old monk doesn't even dare to investigate it, much less interfere." As he said that, he clasped his hands together. Young Master Yi is not an ordinary person. Yi Xian fell silent. Karma. His life revolved around these two words. The old monk suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, this old monk has something to say. I wonder if young Master Yi would be willing to listen." Yi Xian said with a smile, "Master, please speak." The old monk nodded and said softly, "Young Master Yi, we Buddhists also pay attention to the cycle of karma. Although many of the Buddhist teachings cannot remove the karma on young Master Yi, it is still beneficial to young Master Yi. Young Master Yi should study it more." Yi Xian suddenly said, "Master, I heard that this Buddhist teachings originate from the realm of ultimate bliss?" The old monk nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Are the people from the realm of ultimate bliss very strong?" The old monk smiled. "Young Master Yi, what do you think is strong? Like the plain-dressed woman?" Yi Xian was a little surprised. "Master, you know her?" The old monk nodded. "I know. She's very strong." Yi Xian looked at the old monk. "Master, can you beat her?" The old monk shook his head. "I can't." Just as Yi Xian was about to say something, the old monk suddenly took out a yellowed ancient book and handed it to Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, it's fate that we met. I'll give this to you. I hope it can help you." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he said, "How could I?" The old monk smiled and said, "I heard that young Master Yi imprisoned 2 monks from my ancient temple, but he didn't kill them. Instead, he returned them. One of them is related to me." Yi Xian thought for a while. Then he said, "Thanks a lot." With that said, he took the yellowed ancient book and glanced at it. There were 4 faded black words on the ancient book. Vajrabuddha Body. Vajrabuddha Body. Yi Xian frowned slightly. He looked up, and at that moment, the old monk had disappeared. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's expression instantly became solemn. How did the old monk disappear? At this moment, the voice from the 9th floor suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's mind. "You've met an expert." An expert. Yi Xian looked around, but he still didn't see the old monk. With his current strength, the old monk was still able to disappear without a trace in front of him. It had to be said that this was too abnormal. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian looked down at the ancient book. Vajrabuddha Body? Did it cultivate the physical body? Yi Xian was about to open it when he heard footsteps coming from behind him. Yi Xian turned around. It was the abbot. The abbot clasped his hands together. "Young Master Yi, you met him?" Yi Xian blinked. "The old monk sweeping the floor?" The abbot nodded. Yi Xian nodded. "I did. Yes. Master Abbot, who is this master sweeping the floor?" A complicated look flashed in the abbot's eyes. "He's a senior from my ancient temple. We only know that he's in the ancient temple. But after that, no one from my ancient temple has seen him. I never expected that he would actually come out to meet young Master Yi today." Yi Xian was a little surprised. "Only Master Abbot has seen him before?" The abbot nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian fell silent. It looked like he had really met an expert. The abbot suddenly looked at the yellowed ancient book in Yi Xian's hands. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "Young Master Yi, can I have a look at it?" Yi Xian nodded. He handed the Buddhist scripture to the abbot. The abbot opened it and glanced at it. A moment later, he looked at Yi Xian and said softly, "Young Master Yi has such good fortune." Yi Xian asked, "Why do you say that?" A complicated look flashed in the abbot's eyes. This is our ancient temple's supreme physical cultivation method. It was brought by ancestral master Emoluo from the realm of Western Paradise. This cultivation method has been lost for tens of thousands of years. I never expected it to appear again today. Yi Xian blinked. Is it very powerful? The abbot nodded. The Vajra Buddha body is impervious to all evils and impervious to all karma. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice. Can it break the karma on my body? The abbot hesitated for a moment before saying. Perhaps impervious to all karma is a little exaggerated. Yi Xian was speechless. The abbot handed the Buddhist scripture to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, since the senior gave this to you, it means that he has acknowledged you. Since he acknowledged you, then my ancient temple will also acknowledge you. My ancient temple will do our best to help young Master Yi cultivate this Vajra Buddha body. Yi Xian said seriously, Can we begin now? The abbot nodded. Yes. Young Master Yi, please follow me. With that he turned and left. Yi Xian glanced at the Buddhist scripture in his hand. His eyes were filled with surprise. Why would that old monk give me such a divine item for no reason? Could it be that I'm too outstanding? Yi Xian shook his head. He didn't want to think too much about it and hurriedly followed. Soon, the abbot brought Yi Xian to the ancient temple's martial arts hall. The martial arts hall wasn't big, and there was a monk in a black robe inside. The black-robed monk bowed respectfully to the abbot. The abbot said, Jiju, this is young Master Yi. He will be cultivating with us here during this period of time. The black-robed monk called Jiju bowed slightly to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi. Yi Xian returned the bow. The abbot looked at Yi Xian. He hesitated for a moment before saying, Young Master Yi, if my ancient temple helps you cultivate the Vajra protection, can young Master Yi allow my ancient temple to make a copy of it and leave it in the temple? Yi Xian glanced at the abbot. So this was the abbot's real purpose. Yi Xian smiled. Of course, he'd obtained some benefits, so he naturally had to share some with the abbot. In any case, he'd already gained a lot. Seeing that Yi Xian had agreed, the abbot pressed his palms together. Thank you, young Master Yi. That was given to Yi Xian by the old monk. If Yi Xian didn't agree, then the abbot wouldn't dare to take it by force. Only he knew what the old monk meant to the ancient temple. The abbot collected his thoughts. He took out a box and opened it. Inside the box was a golden pill. As soon as the box was opened, a fragrant aroma wafted out. Soon, the entire martial arts hall was filled with the aroma of the pill. Yi Xian was a little surprised. Master Abbot, what is this? The abbot smiled. Buddha Spirit Pill. It can purify the dust on young Master Yi's body, allowing young Master Yi to better cultivate the Vajra Buddha body. Yi Xian blinked. For me. The abbot nodded. He handed the pill to Yi Xian. Yi Xian didn't stand on ceremony. He picked it up and ate it. He wasn't afraid of the other party playing any tricks. In any case, Xiaotao was here. Whether the other party tried to poison him or possess him, there was no chance. As soon as the Buddha pill entered his body, a wave of pure spirit chi suddenly erupted from his body. This spirit chi was different from the spirit chi he had come into contact with before. This spirit chi began to wander around his body. At this moment, he felt warm all over and very comfortable. Yi Xian looked at the abbot. The abbot smiled. When a person is in the placenta, they absorb Xiantian qi. This Xiantian qi is incomparably pure. Therefore, newborn babies have fair skin and pure bodies. After they are born, they eat grains and are contaminated with dust. The magical effect of this pill is to remove the dust and restore Xiantian qi. If you have Xiantian qi in your body, cultivating the Vajra Buddha body will be twice the result with half the effort. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice. Master Abbot, this pill is very precious, right? The abbot nodded. Very precious. It takes about 10 years to refine one pill. Yi Xian blinked. Master, can I take a look at the pill formula? To tell you the truth, I also do some research on the Tao of medicinal pills. The abbot hesitated for a moment, then said, This? Yi Xian said in a serious tone. If Master has any difficulties, it's all right. I understand. I'll just ask for it from the Master sweeping the floor. The abbot looked at Yi Xian. What did the old man say to you? Yixian smiled. Nothing much. He just asked me to meet him there when I'm free. The abbot fell silent. Yixian said again, Master Abbot, you know that we hit it off the moment we met. The abbot suddenly took out a scroll and handed it to Yixian. Young master, you take it. Yixian took the scroll. And then he said, Master, is this the medicinal pills formula and refinement method? The abbot nodded. Yes. Yixian kept the scroll and clasped his hands together. Thank you, master, for your generosity. The abbot glanced at Yixian. At this moment, he was feeling a little regretful. His original plan was to let Yixian join the ancient temple. It would be best if he could become a monk. If Yixian became a part of the ancient temple, it would be a win-win situation for the ancient temple. Not only would there be one less threat, but the ancient temple would also gain a super genius. Most importantly, this super genius would be able to open the study room, killing 3 birds with 1 stone. But at this moment, he suddenly realized that if Yixian joined the ancient temple, it might not necessarily be a good thing. This guy was too shameless. Although the monks in the temple were not stupid, they were definitely no match for Yixian when it came to scheming. At this moment, Yixian suddenly said, Master Abbot, can we begin? The abbot looked at Yixian and nodded. Of course. Young Master Yi, how do you feel now? Yixian sensed his body and said in a deep voice, I feel some qi flowing in my body. No, it's in all my limbs and bones. The abbot smiled. That's innate qi. As he said that, he clasped his hands together. In an instant, a Buddhist light suddenly enveloped Yixian. Then the abbot's voice sounded in Yixian's mind. Young Master Yi, under normal circumstances, you need to cultivate the power of Dharma and use it to temper your body. However, you can't cultivate the power of Dharma in a short period of time. Therefore, I can only use my power of Dharma to help you temper your body. Please cooperate. With that, countless golden power of Dharma surged into Yixian's body. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.